Hey, everybody. Welcome. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. I hope you guys can hear me. Um, OBS is being a little bit of a diva right now. Otherwise, it looks like we're doing all right, but let me know that you guys can hear me okay. Hello, hello. Yay, we're live. We're live. Let me just share on Discord for people who get the notifications over there that we are live. All right. There we go. So today, you guys might remember back on Wednesday, we read the first half of this book. Supposed to be on the cover. I hate that it shows her being blonde. I know, even though it says that she's redhead multiple times in the book. This is a huge discrepancy that drives me crazy. Anyway. You might remember this is a book of 6 short Nancy Drew ghost stories of her solving mysteries where there are ghost sightings and such. We did the first 3 on Wednesday night. I was about to fall asleep, so I said I'd come back tonight and read the other 3. Looks like we have a little less than half the book to go. If we, for some reason, were to blow through these and want to read a little bit more, I do have the volume 2 of the Nancy Drew Ghost Stories, but I do think this will take us a little bit of time because it was a slower going process getting through this first 3 stories than I anticipated. So that's the plan. Hey, Patrick. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for spending your Friday night with me. I know you could be elsewhere, so thank you very much. Yeah, I'm just going to give it a few minutes for people to trickle in. But yes, if you could like the stream, it helps people know that we're here. And that in turn helps people find their way to our channel. So that is a great way to help us grow as a community. So, yeah. Waffle House. What about Waffle House? I mean, it's Waffle House. Let's see. What do you guys have any drink or snack or maybe a craft or an art project to do? Never been to a Waffle House. I don't know if I've ever sat down to like eat a full meal in Waffle House. I've gotten Waffle House to go. I've gotten people have brought me Waffle House outside the walls of the Waffle House, but it's such a thing here in Atlanta. They're everywhere. You can't really get away from it. Closes during extreme weather. Yeah, if Waffle House closes during extreme weather, then we're fucked. Tropical punch juice and pizza, nice. I have hot chocolate in my Murder She Wrote mug. You guys, I don't think you guys can see this on either of the cameras, but it's a pink mug with Jessica Fletcher on it, and it has adapted lyrics from Ice Ice Baby. It says, "If there is a murder, yo, I'll solve it." Love that mug. So that's my mug of choice tonight. Waffle Houses, it's crazy, Gracie. If it closes, evacuate the area. Yeah, they don't close for anything unless it is like a national emergency. You guys ever seen that video clip where the band the like alternative metal band is playing in a Denny's and they're like, "What the fuck is up, Denny's?" And they start like playing and then it just pans over and there's just a normal ass Denny's happening. Like this half of the Denny's is all just people trying to eat their food and this half is people moshing. It's very funny. Anyway, yeah, Yeah, let's get into it. Let's see. What do we have? What did we read last time? We read the story about the ghost teacher. That was very soap opera-y, and I guessed the ending. I was very proud of myself. And then we had the story that clearly inspired the Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake, the PC game, the Nancy Drew PC game. That was fun to read that origin story and see what they changed and what they didn't and what they added for the game. And then we had Blackbeard's Skull, which was the pirate ghost story, where we had an actual confirmed ghost, like canon. That was kind of nice. I didn't expect that. Hi, Kathy. Welcome. Gotta get those shows where you can. It's hard out there for independent, small bands, indie bands. Sounds like typical theater kids at Denny's. Yep. Want me to? Oh, that's cute. Yeah, so tonight we are starting with story 4 in the book, The Ghost Jogger. I'm sure this one will not be silly. Anyway, hello, foolish mortals. I have not seen the Haunted Mansion movie yet, but it's out on Disney Plus, so I will probably go and watch it at some point. And no, that's not an endorsement. Disney, pay your people. I'm ready for the strike to be over. Thank you. I have no idea. This is for a book series that I've never heard of, nor have I read before, but somebody gave it to me at Dragon Con, and I love the vibes. The Time to Boogie with the giant werewolf man, great vibes, impeccable vibes. So we've been using that one. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, Shell. Let's see. Okay. The Ghost Jogger. Evening, Nancy and her close friends, Bess and George, joined the young people of River Heights who gathered in the park to jog. The three girls became separated, however. Nancy found herself running beside a figure wearing a long white cape with a hood that completely covered his face. Weird jogging outfit, she thought. A moment later, the figure stuck his hand out, holding in it a folded note. The young detective quickly grabbed it and unfolded it as she ran. The ink was mysteriously faded, but after staring at it closely, she read, "Nancy, find them in the empty barn with the flaming horse on it. The family ghost." This sounds like somebody's trying to initiate Nancy into a cult, and I don't care for it. Hi, Laser. Oh, the frog potion bottle from Target. My mom got it for me. I love it. I love that other people have it. Yes. I love that he lights up and changes colors. Tincture of Toad. Good old Target. "Who are you?" she asked, turning abruptly. The ghostly being had disappeared. Nancy's pulse skipped a beat. What was this strange vision? Nancy tried to find the hooded ghost, but he had vanished in the evening dusk. Oh my goodness. Oh. She ran up to the passing joggers and asked if they had seen. Let me try that again. She ran up to passing joggers and asked if they had seen him. Most of them said no, but two pointed off among some trees. Nancy ran to the wooded area but failed to locate the mysterious figure. As she started back, her pulse skipped another beat. For a moment, she thought she saw a flash of white in between the trees. I can't stop yawning. Hang on. Hello, everybody coming in. Welcome. Hi, Gabe. Cat and Bat 2. It's part of my Halloween classic dining room theme. Nice. Let's see. Losing my place, losing my place. When she arrived at the spot, there was nothing there. Anxiously, the girl detective hurried back to the joggers, joined them on the park joined them to the park entrance, then dashed outside. Minutes later, she reached home and burst into the living room. Hannah Gruen, the motherly housekeeper for Nancy and her father, was in the den watching a newscast on TV. She looked up quickly and gasped, "Nancy, you're as white as a sheet. This jogging is too much for you. You'd better ease up a bit." "Oh, Hannah, dear, I'm all right. I just had a little scare, that's all." "A mugger?" Mrs. Gruen asked nervously. Hannah knows that Nancy and Carson have the wildest job, and she's prepared for anything at all times. By all movie logic, Nancy should never have been able to survive. Yeah. But she's Nancy, and she survives, like, a full-on kidnapping every other week. So, I guess the rules don't apply to her. "A mugger?" Mrs. Gruen asked nervously. "No, a ghost," Nancy told Mrs. Gruen about the incident. "I wonder," the housekeeper said, but did not go on. "You wonder what?" Nancy prodded her. "If a story on the news could tie in with your adventure." "What was the newscast about?" Nancy asked. That two children, a brother and sister, aged 8 and 10, are missing. It's not known if they ran away deliberately, wandered off and are lost, or were kidnapped. The police have no clues." "How dreadful," Nancy replied, then perked up. "And you think, Hannah, that the ghost jogger may know something about it?" Mrs. Gruen smiled. "I'll go a step further. I think he wants you to solve the mystery." Hannah knows how this routine works. Hannah's got it down. "Why, Hannah, you're becoming a regular armchair investigator," Nancy commented with a grin. "I wonder if you could possibly be right," she added, turning her attention to the newscasts and hoping the segment about the children would be repeated. It was not. She turned the dial on the set to several other channels but learned nothing more about the case. Nancy turned off the television and sat lost in thought. What should she do? Work on the clue the ghost had given her, or wait until she saw him again? A few minutes later, Nancy picked up the phone and called George. "No, I'm all right," Nancy spoke from her end of the line, "but I had a terrible scare in the park after the... Oh my goodness, sorry. After we were separated. Can you go with me tomorrow morning to chase down a clue or two?" "Sure. A new mystery?" "I think so." "Okay, I'll pick you up at 10. Is Bess free?" "No, I think she has plans tomorrow." As soon as George was in Nancy's car the next day, she asked for a full explanation of where they were going and why. "Oh, Chris, thank you. Welcome. Welcome to being a member. Thank you for being a senior detective." Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much. Hi, Rachel. Nancy's built different. Beautiful night and morning. Good night. Good to see you, Phantom. Hi, Paulo. Thank you. Let's see. "We have to find a deserted barn with a flaming red horse on it. Sounds rather hard to find," George commented. "What's the story?" "I'm not sure, but possibly those two missing children are being held there." "Wow," George exclaimed, "and you expect me to help you rescue them?" "You guessed it." George is like, "Why don't I have normal friends?" I watch a lot. Thank you, Chris. That's very, very kind of you. I so appreciate it. Yes, and thank you to everybody who has liked the stream too. It is very, very, very helpful. I'll take a rain check, said George with a joking smile. If this is a kidnapping case, what's the ransom? For an answer, Nancy told her friend about the ghostly being that passed a note to her. Then Hannah heard the broadcasts about the missing children and put two and two together. We may be on a wild goose chase, but if you're game, you mean a wild horse chase, George chimed in. Okay, Nancy, let's go, but where to? Boo, that was a bad joke, George. I wish I knew, Nancy replied. Just keep your sharp eyes open. She drove for several miles into the country before they saw a barn that appeared deserted. Look, George said. Look, cried George, a hex sign with a flaming red horse. Nancy stopped the car behind some bushes near the entrance to a weed-filled driveway. We'd better walk in, she said. As they neared the old barn, the girls became aware of voices inside. I don't want to go to the lake, I want to go home, cried a high-pitched voice. I wonder if it's a child, Nancy thought. Nancy and George quietly sneaked up to a side door of the old barn. They were just in time to see two men and a woman. One man was holding a little girl who was struggling to get away. Oh no. Trigger warning for kidnapping. Child abduction. And the number goes up, makes my brain. Thank you guys. That's because you guys are awesome and listen to me. Thank you for listening to me. That's okay, Shell. It's just for the people who are financially supporting us to get some perks. I wanted to have a way to have a couple of things to say thank you for those of you who, donate to the channel if you so want them. So that's it. If not, you just being here is very much support in and of itself. Let's see. Okay. The other man, a dark-haired and heavy-set, carried a boy who was kicking and punching his captor. You go, kid. Stop that, you brat, the man commanded, but the boy did not obey. Help, help, the little girl cried out. The two men, grasping the children tightly, rushed out the big front door of the barn toward a waiting dark-colored station wagon. They put the boy and girl in the back, then jumped into the front seat. Whoop. The woman had gone ahead and started the car and now sent it roaring off. Quick, Nancy exclaimed, let's go. She and George raced back to the car and in seconds were following the station wagon along the country road. Suddenly, Nancy groaned. Her convertible was slowing down. The needle on the gas gauge pointed to empty. As the engine finally died, Nancy turned the car off the road. While this was going on, George kept her eyes focused on the fleeing station wagon. At a fork in the road, just ahead, it took the branch to the left and disappeared. Rotten luck, Nancy, and we'll never get close enough to get the license number, George exclaimed. If only we knew where they were headed. Those poor children. That gas gauge must have been stuck. It registered almost full when we started. I know, Nancy replied with concern. We've got to track those people down somehow. Someone cut the gas tank. I'm calling it right now. I know, Nancy replied with concern. We've got to track down those people. We've got to track those people down somehow. I guess now my only chance is seeing the ghost jogger tonight in the park. George stepped out of the car and waved down an oncoming truck. The kindly driver offered to stop at a service station. There, he arranged for an attendant to bring back a can of gasoline to the girls, which he did promptly, poured the fuel into the thirsty tank, then left. The thirsty tank. Yes, we are starting our first story of the night, Ellery. 2 kids have been kidnapped. And we chased them down in Nancy's convertible, and then all the gas leaked out of her car, or she had no gas in her car, so they lost them. thirsty tank to my brain just sounds like another euphemism for horny jail, and my sorry. I'm gonna keep reading. Anyway. Oh, fun. Yes, very fun. I remember the cabin, dogs, and Blackbeard. What was the other story Wednesday? The ghost teacher. The teacher that was not to spoil it for anybody who hasn't watched that stream, because you can. They're three completely different stories to what we're reading tonight, but the one with the teacher and her ghost kept being seen around campus. At the first opportunity, they called the police and with the information, but as Nancy suspected, with nothing but the station wagon as a lead, there was little hope of finding the children. This time, George took the wheel and soon was pulling up in front of her house. "Call me later, Nancy, and let me know what happens, and be careful." "I promise," Nancy replied, moving over to the driver's seat to head home. Once there, she quickly changed into her warm-up suit, and by 7 o'clock was down at the park. The weather had turned cool, and it was now drizzling. Nancy found it uncomfortable just standing around looking at the runners' faces, so she decided to jog. She had made 2 trips around the cinder track before the ghost jogger appeared. He was wearing the same long white raincoat and hood. He quickened his pace to reach her, and suddenly a hand shot out again holding a note. Nancy slowed down and opened it. "Thank you for your hard work. Too bad it ended the way it did. Now try the river boat with the old sea captain." Huh. I have so many questions. I hope they get answered. Nancy turned her head to ask her jogging companion a question, but he was gone as quickly as he had appeared. Where? How? Nancy looked ahead behind her and to each side. He was not in sight. Nancy was mystified. There was no place anyone could hide. Even in the dusk, the white cape should have been spotted easily if it were anywhere nearby. Oh dear, Nancy thought. I guess I'll have to follow his instructions and not worry now about the identity of the family ghost. She again called the police, but they obviously felt it was all too vague for them to follow up. ACAB, the police aren't doing shit. At home later, she told her father the whole strange story and then asked him, "Dad, did you ever hear of a boat on our river run by an old sea captain?" Mr. Drew thought for several moments, then replied, "I seem to recall a story about a reclusive sea captain who docked his boat in the River Heights dock a long time ago. He was supposed to be quite a character." "Is he still alive?" Nancy broke in. Mr. Drew shook his head uncertainly. "I heard that a year or 2 ago the ship and its captain disappeared. It was thought he might have tried to get back to the Gulf." Nancy asked, "What kind of ship was it?" "I believe it was a steamer called the Magnolia." "I wonder what the connection is between the ghost jogger's message and the riverboat and captain. One thing's for sure, there's no time to waste if those children are to be rescued. But I can't do it in the dark." Nancy phoned Bess and George. "Better eat a good breakfast tomorrow morning," she warned them. "We have some important sleuthing to do for those missing children." She's like, "Get in, losers. We're going on a rescue mission." Nancy being ACAB is always my favorite part. Yeah, me too. Nancy's like, "Once again, the police are useless." "Let's jog before we go," George suggested. "Good idea," Nancy replied. "We can't afford to miss a chance to run with the family ghost. He may appear during the day as well as the night. I'll pick you up at about 7 a.m. To the girls' disappointment, the mysterious figure did not appear while they were at the track. God, having the extra energy to voluntarily jog before going on a rescue mission? Good for them. "I'm likely to lose some weight if we keep this up," Bess panted and left the park. As they left the park, we talked about this last time. There's a lot of negative attention in this era of the books put on Bess's weight. like about how she's always supposed to be like losing weight and diet culture, and we don't stand that. Poor Bess. Anyway, um, Marvin, the skeleton, George kidded her cousin, then reported to her that she heard on a TV newscast that there was no word about the missing children. If the police can't find them, what chance do we have? Bess complained. You forget how we earned our fantastic reputation, George countered. We have spirit and determination. And we have Nancy, Bess reminded her with a laugh. That's what I was going to say, too. No shade to Bess and George. As the three girls approached the river in Nancy's car, George asked the young detective where she expected to pick up a clue. From a native riverman, Nancy replied. Ned went camping once on Tall Tree Island and met a man named Pete who knows everything about Muskoka River. We'll try to track him down. Boo, Ned, not Ned. They're the Wonder Pets trio, but people, yes. Have a good dinner, Patrick. How are we going to get there? George asked. Swim? I have a big surprise, was the answer as she parked the car. Follow me. Nancy led the way to a boat rental dock and pointed to a sleek maroon speedboat with white lettering that spelled Discoverer. Isn't she a beauty? Nancy exclaimed. Don't tell me, Bess remarked. Let me guess. Your brother. Wait, your father. I was like, Nancy doesn't have a brother. Your father bought it for you yesterday. Nancy laughed. Not quite, but he did rent it for a month or two, intending to use it for fun on the weekends. She sure is. Poor Mr. Drew just wants a day off. He's like, I'm tired. She sure is gorgeous, George agreed. Are we going to Florida in this? Nancy enjoyed George's humor. Not yet, only to Tall Tree Island. All aboard, mates. The voice change when Ned is mentioned. The first 3 stories we got through with 0 Ned, and I liked the no Ned. It's like, no high fructose corn syrup, no trans fat, no Ned. The girls climbed in the sleek craft, and soon the Discoverer was speeding across the river with Nancy at the wheel. Smooth as silk, Bess approved. Flashback to Gaston in the Beauty and the Beast, Beauty and the Beast or Christian Easter Beauty and the Beast play where he was singing butter. It's like smooth like butter. And it was very awkward. I just wish we were on a pleasure trip instead of a search for lost children, George admitted. The others agreed. Following Ned's directions, Nancy reached the small land mass with a coast of low trees. With a coast of low trees. Just one tall pine rose from the center. At the edge of the group of trees stood a dock and a small shack. A hound lay asleep in front of it, but at the sound of the Discoverer's motor, the dog raised his head, blinked one eye, stood up, and gave a deep, throaty woof. He's a very good boy. Don't make me relive it again already. Sorry. Sorry for anybody who had it put out of their mind. Instantly, the door opened. A tall, thin man with oversized hands and feet stepped out and shook his head as if he had just awakened. His wispy, blonde, gray hair swung from side to side, then settled into place. Some welcoming committee, Bess whispered with a grin. Good morning, Nancy said. I'm sorry to bother you. But are you Pete, the famous riverman? That I am, he replied, a smile turning up his mouth. And you're no bother. Wait, and you're no bother either. Gets kind of lonely around here with just Sailor and me. He patted the old hound affectionately. Now what can I do for you? I've been told, the girl detective replied. Is he hitting on Nancy? Ugh. I've been told, the girl detective replied, that you could tell me about the legendary lost ship Magnolia. She ain't lost, Pete said quickly. There's not a word of truth to that rumor. Certain folks just don't want to hear want her whereabouts to be known. Why? I don't know. I wonder what shape the Magnolia is in these days. Rats and squirrels and birds could have made a mess of that fine little steamer. I wish we could find out, Nancy urged. Is there any chance you could take us to her today? Pete noted the three girls' eager expressions. Adventure lovers, eh? He said with a grin. I don't see why I can't, he continued, but why don't you ladies sit down for a spell, and we'll have a bite to eat before we set out. Oh my god. Please just be a kind old man. Please just be a kind old man. Please just be a kind old man. Right. Nice old man with puppy, please. Please. Must pet the good boy. With the boat. He does! Why does he? Does anybody remember when we read that Star Trek Corona book? Where they did Kirk so dirty and they straight up, I was gonna say implied, but they pretty much straight up said that he was sexually attracted to the ship. The Enterprise. It's giving off those vibes, and I wish it wasn't. Bess especially was happy with the suggestion. Soon the foursome were enjoying a cool drink and fresh fruit while Nancy told Pete the purpose of their search. After the riverman tied his hound to a post, he put on a battered felt hat. Then he and the girls climbed into the Discoverer and headed downriver. A mile further on, Pete directed Nancy to enter a shadowy inlet. She was a bit apprehensive. Is this safe? She asked him. How about tree roots or logs in the water? That could foul up the Discoverer. If we keep in the channel, we'll be all right, Pete said, directing her carefully. 10 minutes later, he called out, Look ahead, there she be. They basically were one step away from writing fanfic about him in the fic. Oh, yeah. Was the ship his type? Yeah, as long as he's not hitting on Nancy, because he seems quite a bit too old for Nancy and her friends. I'm fine if he wants to, do the do with his ship. I don't care. Like that guy in that old TLC show where he wanted to fuck his car. The girls stared. Moored to one side of the tree-lined riverbank was a small steamer. It had been painted white, but now most of the paint had chipped off and it looked like a forlorn derelict. Bess spoke up. I thought nobody lived on it. I think I see a light. That's mighty odd, Pete replied. We'd better see who's aboard. Cupping his hands to his mouth, as the Discoverer drifted toward the steamer, he shouted, Ship ahoy, Magnolia! No one appeared on deck, but a stentorian voice boomed out. I don't know what that word means. Come any closer and you'll regret it. Bess was trembling. Oh, Pete, let's go back, she pleaded. Not yet, said George. It's just getting interesting. George is always here for the tea. Suddenly, there was a scream inside the steamer. It was followed by a child's voice. Let go of me! I don't want to stay here with you. I want to go home. The girls stared at one another. Was this one of the missing children? Should Nancy and her small rescue party board the boat? It's too dangerous, Bess declared. Someone in the steamer might harm them, and us, too. Pete held up his hand to caution them. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Hold fast, he said. You girls wait here. I'll go aboard and find out what's going on. His offer came too late. Nancy was already quietly climbing a rope ladder to the side of the Magnolia. She had almost reached an opening into the hold of the steamer when a man wearing a sea captain's uniform leaned over the railing and ordered her to stop. Nancy's already like, fuck it. There's kids in danger. Hi, Jonathan. Long-winded or with authoritarian tone. Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Learn something new every day. People so dirty and gave us Trisha Paytas. Wait, is that true? Trisha Paytas got started on My Strange Addiction? How did I miss this part of the Paytas lore? God. I need a sip of my drink. Hang on. Oh, she was the tanning. Oh my god. I do remember this vaguely. Oh my god. Now I kind of want to watch the Trisha Paytas My Strange Addiction episode. Cause yikes, I'm sure that was a lot. Anyway. What do you think you're doing? He shouted. Stay away from here. Instead of obeying, she disappeared into the hold as a metal door dropped into place behind her. I must get out of here fast, Nancy realized, feeling around the walls in semi-darkness. She hunted for an inside door. The air was very heavy, which made it difficult for Nancy to breathe. She kept searching, however, and just as she was about to faint, her fingers felt a wooden bar. Either that or her Ellen. I'm pretty sure it was Ellen appearance where she showed Interesting. I forgot about this whole part of because I've never like followed Trisha Paytas, so I think I do remember hearing that now, but I completely forgot that this was part of the lore. All right. Nancy lifted it. Wait. Okay, so Nancy's in the hold. Nancy lifted it, and a heavy door swung open silently. Beyond stretched a corridor with several staterooms. The crew's quarters, no doubt. The excited young detective took several deep breaths of the fresher air. Not fresh air, fresher air. Then scooted along the corridor to a stairway at the end. Just before reaching it, Nancy heard the children again. I won't go, one screamed. The other cried out, Mommy, Daddy, where are you? Come and get us. These kids are badasses? Nancy did not hesitate. She bounded up the steps into a gallery, raced through a small dining area, and into a lounge. She was just in time to see a small boy and girl carried out by two men. She raced after them into a narrow corridor that had an opening on one side with steps down to the water. The kidnappers were already halfway down the stairs. Child alert. Hello, everybody. Please be mindful of the fact that we have children in the audience currently. All right. Suddenly, Nancy felt a presence behind her. Turning her head slightly, she caught a glimpse of White, the ghost jogger. Get your boat and follow me to the old boathouse, he whispered. She debated a few seconds whether to obey or continue after the abductors, as the children were still screaming to be freed. Nancy decided she had better get some help. She turned and speedily retracted her steps through the magnolia to the outer door of the hold. To her relief, Pete stood in the opening, having reopened the door. The two hurried down the rope ladder and jumped into the Discoverer. The girl detective quickly explained the situation while George kept the motor running. Pete took the wheel. Jesus did not take the wheel, Pete did. And sent the boat to the other side of the steamer. I'm good. How are you? Almost said. Sorry, that last message just made me laugh. Disappearing down the inlet was the kidnapper's boat. With the ghost not far behind in another speedboat, now he's Peter? He was Pete a second ago. Now he's Peter. Revved up the motor of the Discoverer, which then gradually caught up to the fleeing craft. A race began down the inlet with the ghost boat and Nancy's side. With the ghost's boat and Nancy's side by side, she shouted across, "Who has the children?" "My uncle, John Clark. He's determined to get some ransom money." "Who kidnapped the children?" Nancy asked. "I think he did, or his pals." Guy's like, "I just told you, didn't I?" Nancy was confused. "We mustn't let Uncle John carry out his plan and get away with all that money," the ghost continued. "We must stop him." Nancy responded to the urgency of the situation immediately. "Pete, please, can the boat go any faster? We must stay close," she cried out. As the ghost boat shot ahead, the riverman speeded up the Discoverer. A few minutes later, the craft ahead turned sharply to the left and entered the large old boathouse. As Pete followed, a corrugated metal door slammed down, landing just back of the cockpit. Nancy and Peter... Now he's Peter. He's Peter now, I guess. Were cut off from Bess and George. They all tried to raise the door, but in vain. I mean, Pete is obviously short for Peter, but I've never seen a book just switch up in the middle for no reason like that. Pete is short for Peter, but I've never seen a book name a character Pete and then for no reason just switch it to Peter. That's just interesting. Nancy and Peter were cut off from Bess and George. They all tried to raise the door, but in vain. "Well, what now?" Pete asked. Now it's Pete again. "I'm going to investigate this building," Nancy said. "If I'm not back in 15 minutes, come and get me." She crawled across the flat prow of the Discoverer onto the aft deck of the ghost boat. The jogger had already left. Alongside his boat lay the kidnapper's craft. No one was aboard. Apparently, the children had been taken to the apartment of the second floor of the boathouse. There was not a sound until the board overhead creaked. It was followed by a man's stern command. "Stop where you are! You can't scare me, you phony ghost." "Not so phony now," the other replied. "You nicknamed me the family ghost because I was always appearing when you didn't want me to. It's a good thing I did. Uncle John Clark, your deceited game is up." Nancy's like, "I'm in the middle of some kind of family drama. I would like to be excluded from this narrative." The young man added, "You'll never get the ransom money." "And who's to stop me?" Mr. Clark snarled. "You forget I have the children." "But we want to go home," a child's voice cried out. Nancy spotted a stairway leading upward and noiselessly ascended it. Quickly, she tried to formulate a plan to rescue the children safely. Was there time? She would need the ghost to help her, of that she was sure. Peter Griffin. Did they have multiple letters and each edited different Now we get this amalgamation. Maybe like a couple different ghostwriters worked on it and then they just didn't proof it well enough. I have no idea. Maybe it was just a typo. I have no idea. But it's interesting. It sure is interesting. It's different from the other mistakes that we found in books. I love finding mistakes in books. It's like one of my favorite things when we read these live. Okay, where was I? Quickly, she tried to formulate a plan to rescue the children. Safely was their time. She would need the ghost to help her, of that she was sure. Reaching the apartment, Nancy found herself in a tiny kitchen. Adjoining it was another small room with a wooden door made only of heavy, crisscross slats. Through the openings, she could see the boy and girl. They shrank back upon seeing Nancy and were beginning to cry. Oh. The girl detective put a finger to her lips and then smiled. "I've come to save you," she whispered to the youngsters soothingly. "Please don't be afraid." "The door's locked," the trembling boy explained quietly. Nancy looked around carefully. She noticed a sturdy bar across the door on the outside and swung it back. "Come on, follow me," she directed the children, stretching out her arms. She led the way down the stairs. To her delight, Pete had managed to raise the metal door of the boathouse. In seconds, Nancy and the two young children had climbed over to the Discoverer, where Bess and George were waiting when heavy footsteps clattered down the boathouse steps. "Pete, take off," Nancy ordered. Before he could back out, however, they heard a loud-sounding horn, and the Coast Guard patrol boat pulled into the boathouse behind the Discoverer and stopped abruptly. Two lieutenants stood up. A man and a woman behind them also stood up and exclaimed, "Our children! Tom, Sally, you're all right." Of course their names are Tom and Sally. Those are quintessential kidnapped children in a Nancy Drew book names. Startled, the brother and sister looked back, then cried out, "Mommy, Daddy!" As the children started to scramble from one boat to the other, a heavy-set man appeared at the foot of the stairway and shouted, "Stop! You can't take those children until you pay me the reward money. I found them." "You didn't find them, you kidnapped them," another voice accused him angrily. "Uncle John, you're an abductor and almost a thief as well. Hang on." So the uncle was identifying himself, saying, "I am not going to return my own niece and nephew because I found them, so I'm not going to return them without the reward money?" What's happening with this family? I have questions. Um, the ghost, only his hood was down now, and Nancy could see he was a rather handsome young man. He was standing up on his own boat. Turning toward the children's parents, he said, "Don't give Uncle John a nickel. I overheard him talking to his cronies and learned that they had kidnapped the children. I promised myself right then and there that he wouldn't get away with it, but I just couldn't call the police. After all, he's my uncle, and I was so afraid of a family scandal. I knew he would never actually harm the children, so I decided to get Nancy Drew's help. I was afraid he'd figure out I was on to him, and so I couldn't contact her out in the open. I had to wear a disguise. I didn't want her to know who I was either, and hoped she'd fall for my act. I was right to enlist her help. She's the best girl detective on land or sea." Question 1. Thanksgiving is going to be very awkward for this family, obviously. 2, what was my 2? I had a 2. What was the 2? It'll come back to me. Oh, Nancy is always attracted to like every guy, and I think it's because boyfriend Ned sucks so bad. Every time Nancy's attracted to a guy that isn't Ned, I feel like it's that particular ghostwriter, whoever was writing at that particular time, just taking their own little jab at Ned. And it makes me happy to think about. At that moment, one of the Coast Guard lieutenants spoke up. Miss Drew, your father became worried about you and your friends. When he called and told us of your Rivermen clue, we figured we'd better come out to find you. It's lucky we all know old Pete here, not Peter, and are familiar with the landmarks in these waters. Mr. Clark and his accomplices stood in disguise. Wait. Mr. Clark and his accomplices stood in disgusted silence as the police took them into custody for later questioning. The triumphant ghosts watched as the children were happily reunited with their parents. Tom and Sally called in loud voices, 3 cheers for Nancy Drew and her friends. And the nephew's just like, what about me? Diamond of Tuxedo Mask. Nancy smiled at Bess and George, then saluted their Riverman friend. We wouldn't have this happy ending without our experienced Captain Pete. He helped the Discoverer really live up to its name. All right. That is story 4. We'll get story 5 going in just a second. This book was published in 1983, right? Or 1984. I don't see it now. Anyway, somewhere in the early 80s. All right. So let me put a bookmark in. I'm going to attempt to run an ad. I know last night some of you were getting them and some of you weren't, so let's see what happens. I don't know if that actually ran an ad, but I'm going to take a sip of my drink. Ad yay. Thank you guys for being patient with the ads. It does help. How did I get chocolate melted on the bottom of my mug? How have I done this? Well, that's interesting. I guess we can chill through the ad because premium. Woo! So how's your day been? My day's been pretty good. My newest video went out early this morning. You might have seen it. And then I got to kind of just chill. Tonight I have to finish getting some stuff ready to do a couple of podcast episodes tomorrow with Gabe. Because we haven't been able to film for the past 2 weeks. And then we're not going to be able to film next week either. So we're going to do 2. Blocker on my computer and my phone is in another room. Fair enough. So that's what I'm gonna do after I get off stream, and then I have to figure out what we're gonna cover next in our trip around the world, because the SAG strike is still unfortunately going on. They're going to be they're still negotiating. That's good. They're negotiating into next week though, so I was hoping we'd end this week with a deal. Looks like we're going into next week, but it does look like the beginning of the end. So there's that. Knock on wood. Where are we headed next? I'm not sure. So here's what I wanted to do. You guys on as the stream crew get the extra scoop, because you're so awesome to be hanging out here live with me. I really wanted to do German Beyond Belief because Germany is currently doing the reboot of Beyond Belief. I can't find any full episodes of that one, and even when I find clips of them, it's really hard to even find them with subtitles. So then I was thinking possibly I'll just cover a regular Beyond Belief episode and have that count as a Germany stop, but then I felt bad because I wanted to actually cover something from Germany if I was going to do that. And I'm really just trying to find interesting things, especially since we're in October. I want to do Halloween things. Um, I found a Romanian kids movie from '97 called Little Ghosts, and I would like to cover it. There's one American film company involved, and I need to make sure that they're not AMPTP affiliated before I can cover it. So, I love the Beyond Belief videos. Oh yes, if you haven't yet taken your meds and you have meds that you take at night, go ahead and take them now. Or if you're watching during the day and it's time for you to take your meds, take them now. Here's your reminder. Um, I'd seen in short, I'm not sure yet. We'll have to see. We'll figure it out. Um, Chatting because engagement for the algorithm. Thank you guys. I'd seen Russian Lord of the Rings, but never heard of Swedish one, so definitely looking forward to seeing the review. Yes, that one was interesting. That one was very interesting. I have not seen Russian Lord of the Rings. I had not seen any Lord of the Rings except for, just regular super famous Lord of the Rings, Hollywood Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings. I know there's several other adaptations. But the Swedish one got sent to me, so I thought it would be nice to do a quick little stop in Sweden. I take mine at 11. Wahaha! This is an early reminder. Take your meds in, well, I don't know what time zone you're in. For me, 11 o'clock is in 2 hours, so take them whenever 11 comes for you. You know, like how Good Mythical Morning, anytime you were watching was your mythical morning. Whenever your 11 o'clock happens to be. All right. Next story, we have The Curse of the Frog. Okay. It's 11 o'clock somewhere. Do I have a VPN? Yes, I do. I use Surfshark, not sponsored, but Surfshark, if you want to sponsor me, hit me up. Get my email, all my links and stuff are in my about page, about section. I have to watch the 10:30, 8:04 here. Nice. Thank you again, all of you who are not sponsored, but we could be sponsored. Sponsor us. Look, I am my YouTube channel is at the place in its development where I'm big enough to be getting the sketchy companies trying to get me to do promotion for them, where like they'll send me their shitty product but they won't pay me. But I'm not big enough yet that anybody actually wants to legitimately sponsor me. So please, if you would like to become my first legitimate sponsor, Surfshark, I will take you up on that. I've been using Surfshark. I've given you free promotion already. And then they're like, why do we have to sponsor you then if you're giving us free promotion? And I'll be like, never mind. I didn't say that. It's not like that's on the internet forever now. Anyway. Oh, gosh. Oh, boy. Hey, guys, this story deals with a fortune teller, and I read ahead and saw that they used that word that starts with G that we don't use anymore. So I'm going to be skipping over that word, but just so you're aware, that's what we're dealing with because it was the 80s. Still goth girl. All right, The Curse of the Frog. Madame Zerga terrifies people who come to have their fortunes told, Nancy. They think she's a witch. She frightens them so badly they'll do whatever she tells them to do. Nancy Drew listened sympathetically to the blank girl seated across the table from her in the Romani tea room. Guys, you knew to say Romani? But you... Guys. Okay. Okay. You could have just used Romani. And not use the other word. A streamer I watched took one from a random coffee company because there was no true compensation on either side, so he just drank the coffee on stream and basically nothing happened from it. Eye twitching. The 80s were whack. And she also uses the word "it's always so jarring." It I only very recently have we started on a wide scale talking about the harmfulness of that word. So it's one of those things where, like, when I read older books, I don't necessarily think that they had bad intentions, but that doesn't mean that there weren't bad consequences. You know what I mean? So I always try to give a warning with that. Um, yeah. Unfortunately, back in the 80s, we just weren't having those conversations. But we know better now, and we don't use that word now. So I'm gonna have to do some. I'm gonna step through the minefield and try very carefully not to say the word. Who's in somebody else's stream? No worries. Hello. Because we don't fuck with that word anyway. I'm also just interested because they're using the word Romani, so they knew the word Romani. So why do we need the other word? I don't know. Okay, anyway. Usually people use the one word because they don't. Okay. Anyway, Mary Lukash had on gold earrings, a kerchief tied around her head, a long, colorful skirt, and tinkly bracelets and necklaces. She spoke and behaved, however, like any other American teenager. This feels very stereotypical, and I don't like it. What exactly do you want me to do, Mary? Asked the reddish blonde-haired detective. You're so good at solving mysteries, Nancy. Can't you expose Madame Zerga's trickery? If you don't, I'm afraid she'll give all the redacted around here a bad name with the police. Okay. 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 I'm gonna. We're going full stereotype. Okay. It's worth mentioning that dishonesty is already a whole. That's her name, Luz. This is holy stereotype, Batman. I need a minute. I need a minute for that one. Uh, that hurts me physically. God. Okay, yep. Yep. It was bad, and then it got worse. Every EXE not found. I am soul damage. Okay. Trigger warning. Negative Romani stereotypes. A compilation of Avery being physically harmed every time a slur gets casually used in old media. Look, here's the thing. When I first started my channel, I was young and naive and had no idea the comprehension of how many times slurs just casually got dropped in old media because we were not talking about how bad they were enough until frighteningly recently. It's something that I've learned in the 3+ years I've done this, where I'm just like, you never know when one's gonna pop up. It can be in the most, like, innocent, innocent looking on the surface thing, and I'm just like, oh boy, here we go. All you can really do is reading Gone with the Wind. I don't know that I have the strength for Gone with the Wind. It's just one of those things where all we can do, it's like when we played the Nancy Drew game where there's just blackface or Confederate sympathizers, we can just call it out. All we can really do is be like, uh-oh, that's bad, and move on. But holy shit, guys. You did Model Land. You have the strength for Gone with... Ugh. Yeah, you could be watching a children's show and then suddenly slur. Oh boy. Yeah, it's just it's always I always obviously do what I can to call it out and obviously not use the harmful language. But Jesus Christ, guys, why? 1983, 84, whenever this was written, was not a good year for not being racist against everybody. So, you know, God, not Song of the South. Okay. 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 Let me keep going. Can't your own people do anything about her? Mary Lukash sadly shook her head, her long blue black hair swaying about her shoulders. No, they're almost as much afraid of her as her customers are. When the chief of our tribe ordered her to stop scaring and cheating people, she just sneered and threatened to put the frog curse on him. He has no power over her. I don't know that Romani people identify as being part of tribe. They might. I'm not Romani, so I don't know. But this is not where I expect my accurate information to be coming from. Avery EXE rebooting. Live action parts are wow. They are wow from what I've heard. I have not ever seen that movie all the way through. But I've heard it's bad. Allow Avery to make changes to this device. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to stay on task. We just got hit upside the head with racism. Jesus. He has no power over her. The frog curse. Nancy stared in surprise at the redacted girl. What's that? I'm not sure myself. All I can tell you is that Madame Zerga has a strange frog with some sort of weird powers. Even redacteds who've seen it coming who've seen it come away scared out of their wits. They're convinced it's possessed by an evil spirit that can haunt them and cause terrible tragedy. Okay. Cultural stereotypes. Trigger warning, please. We got hit upside the head with racism needs to be a main. Does represent so much old media, sadly. This entire short story is giving us all psychic damage. Nancy Drew as a character is just like, I would like to be excluded from this narrative, please. God, who wrote this? This is hurting me physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Okay. Mary explained that Madame Zerga belonged to a different tribe of redacteds from her own. She had opened her fortune telling parlor in River Heights only recently. Nancy already knew that such fortune tellers sometimes plied their skill. Wait, at. Wait. Hang on. I'm looking this word up just to make sure it's not a bad word. I, I trust no one at this point. Okay. Okay. I'm getting inconclusive answers. Period typical racial stereotypes. There is lose. Again, when the Percy Jackson books were being written, we weren't talking about the harm of that word yet. So it's unfortunate, but it's there. And when we read it online, we're going to point out that it's not okay and we're going to skip it. Rick apologized and has since stopped using it. That's good. That's good. That's one of those things where do a whole ass video about casual racism in children's books using this one story. Right? Yes, I'm pinning the warning. Yes, thank you. I'm pinning the warning. Pin. Sorry, I'm so taken aback that my brain is struggling to catch up. This is a big section of the stream. Yes. The worst kind of jump scare, racism jump scare. Ugh, yes, I apologize. In all seriousness, I apologize. Oh, this is part of the job that I don't enjoy is covering, the racist parts. All right. Let's see. Where am I? Okay, so by the way, the word that I wasn't sure if it was negative or not is bajour, which is a French word that I found in the 2 seconds that I googled it. Basically, a name for what's thought to be like a Romani con game. So just more into the stereotypes is what we're playing. Or what police called the Badger game. It was a way to trick their clients out of money while pretending to offer them help with their personal problems. But many redacteds here in town believe that Madame Zerga's frog is a demon in animal form sent by the devil himself. They say she could never have learned from our own Romani people how to tame such an evil creature. Nancy Drew continued talking for a while with her friend in the tea room, which was owned by Mary's parents. She learned that redacteds originally came from India centuries ago and still speak a language called Romani, which is related to the ancient Indian tongue, Sanskrit. Now you're going to give us a history lesson? Now? Older media does indeed seem like the worst part of making nostalgia-based content. It really is. And like here's the thing. I'm white and privileged, so, I'm it's covering it is not even one iota of the grief that must come from having it directed towards you. So, not to be like, "Oh, this is so hard on me," but my least favorite part of doing what I do is when this kind of thing comes up because it can be triggering for people. So, that's just the thing. Just say Romani. Just say Romani. Sorry, I missed something in chat. I was catching up. Okay. Oh, it's gonna be a long chapter. Oh boy. Oh, didn't know that. Referring to coming from India. Yes. As these people wandered about the world, they supported themselves by their skills at metal working, as well as an in-horse trading and animal doctoring. In the Middle Ages, most people thought they were from Egypt, so they became known as redacted word. That, in essence, is they just described why the word is bad, but they described it like it was a fun fact. Okay. Moving on. Okay. Nowadays, Mary told Nancy, American redacteds are more apt to drive vans or station wagons than to ride about in horse-drawn caravans. I imagine they commute just like all the rest of us because they're okay. Yikes. 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 Nancy would be Incorrect mythology and puzzles, but now it's wait. We all thought being angry at Nancy would just be an incorrect mythology and puzzles, but now it's much worse. Because they're people, right? I imagine they like drive cars and shit like the rest of us. Yeah, sorry, this one's gonna take a while to get through because there's no way we're not dissecting how bad this is. Yikes on trikes indeed. Yikes on trikes indeed. Tonight has taken a turn, and now I'm angry, and now we're gonna talk about it. Uh. Many have settled down to work at house painting or driveway paving or selling used cars. Some hold professional positions, but others still prefer to keep on the move. What delicious tea, Nancy said as she sipped the last fragrant cup from the pot. I know they didn't mean it like this, but it just reads like Nancy's like, I'm uncomfortable. Changing the subject. This hurts my soul, right? Like, like, the nervous laughter is coming out, but Jesus Christ, it just genuinely makes me so angry. I find your distress both upsetting and entertaining. I'm very distressed. This is very upsetting. At least it's a short story and not the whole book. Awkward shrug. Yes, I guess so. Oh boy. Oh, it hurts me. Mary smiled proudly. My mother blends it with herbs and flavorings known only to the redacteds. I'm just going to start saying Romanis every time, although I don't know if they're always using it in ways that you would want to use Roman. Okay, I'll just keep going. Rising to go, Nancy promised to investigate Madame Zerga. I'm not sure anyone can stop her from telling fortunes, Nancy informed the girl. But I'll certainly try to find out how she frightens people so badly with her weird frog curse. She can't be allowed to scare people out of their money. Just a crazy, harmful stereotype, ghostwriter. Fix the book when can, yeah. Say some whack homophobic joke, and it hits me like a freight train. Yeah, sometimes you just don't know what to do. Don't tempt fate like that. I mean, so far the rest of the book, although last time we read it, we did have one of the stories where George said something about the names of the dogs sounding like ancient Indian deities, and we all were like, boy, we hope they're talking about actual deities from India. So this whole book is very of its time, so, you know, hopefully that's what they meant. Yep. All right, let's just keep going. This hurts me. This hurts me physically. Where am I? Outside the tea room, Nancy took the wheel of her blue sports car. Only 4 o'clock, she noted, glancing at her wristwatch. That should give me time enough to visit Madame Zerga before dinner. The fortune-telling parlor was located in what had once been a store across the street from Riverview Park. A sign on the curtain window read, Madame Zerga, Oriental palmist, crystal gazer, and spiritual advisor. Oh, Thomas. Oh, Thomas. Inoffensive. It's not, though. Yeah. We're struggling with this one particular short story. We're struggling with it. You joined at a bad time. We're glad that you're here, by the way. For those of you just joining in, everybody's trying to warn you because of the terrible racist story that we've just hit out of absolutely nowhere in this book from 1983. Just did a curse thing and created an advertising jingle, but it's just the words casual 80s racism in a jaunty tune to keep me from losing the last of my sanity. Oh, God. This is Dragon Bean. Let me talk about something that I like right now. This is Dragon Bean. He is from The Tale of the Bunny Picnic, which is a Jim Henson movie that's obscure and are somewhat obscure in relation to the other Jim Henson stuff. And I covered it a couple years ago, and Noah Hutchins, who is a great member of our community, created this for me, and he lives here now, and he's my son, and I love him very much. Well, they were interesting until we got to the one that we're in. Just don't stop screaming until it's over. Okay, let me try to get through this. Sorry. Below that, another sign advised passersby to consult Madame Zerga about all your personal problems. She certainly has confidence in her own powers, Nancy thought, repressing a wry smile. That all could take everything from how to pay your bills to overcoming shyness or clearing up warts. A gong sounded in the back of the store as she entered. Nancy found herself in a small, bare room furnished with a folding chair and a painting on the wall of a beautiful Romany woman, with a mysterious light shining all around her head. Nancy sat down to wait. As her gaze flickered about the room, she noticed the eyes of the Romany woman in the picture moved slightly. Again, the young detective tried not to smile. She realized that Madame Zerga was studying her latest client. Presently, a voice spoke over the concealed intercom. You may now enter the spiritual chamber. It was a woman's voice, but powerful and hypnotic, almost as deep as a man's. Nancy got up and went through. You trying to drag those of us that have deep voices for women? Ah! Ah! Okay. I'm just gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going. Nancy got up and went through a curtain door way into a back room. Its walls were hung with dark purple drapes, which seemed to muffle sound. In the center of the room were 2 chairs and a small table bearing a crystal ball. A burning cone of incense by a wall stand filled the chamber with a strange scent. But what caught Nancy's interest once was a large green frog. It was perched on the table near the crystal ball. Its bulging eyes glared at her with a sinister intensity. This must be the frog Mary Lukash told me about, Nancy thought. At first the creature seemed real, and she assumed it was alive, but when it remained motionless, Nancy realized the frog was only stuffed one, prepared by a skilled taxidermist. Nevertheless, she pulled her chair safely away from the repulsive green creature before sitting down. Her head was beginning to ache, and the room seemed to waver before her eyes. The incense fumes must be making me woozy, Nancy reflected in annoyance. They use the word oriental in reference to the music. I don't know if that's kosher or not, so I'm just gonna say music. Music began to play. Almost as if the Romany fortune teller had read the girl's mind. The air gradually seemed to clear, but Nancy's headache did not go away. The curtains parted, and Madame Zerga entered the chamber. The fortune teller, at least they said fortune teller that time, was tall, imposing woman with a beak nose, glowing dark eyes, and heavy black brows. Holy stereotype, Batman! She was dressed in Romany fashion with a colorful kerchief on her head, a long green and yellow gown, golden bangles, necklace, and earrings. Good afternoon, Miss Drew, she intoned, seating herself across the table. Nancy blinked in amazement. How did Madame Zerga know her name? Was it possible that the fortune teller really did have occult powers? Yeah, this was written in the 80s. Occult powers. It's so bad. It's so bad. Notes of transphobia in that deep voice for a woman line. Oh yeah, I've been so affronted with the racism that it didn't even hit me that it could potentially be subtle transphobia. Great. We hate that. I hate this so much. Can we just edit this out of the VOD? I think this is important genuinely. I think this is important as a teaching moment. But I am going to go back and put some very heavy warnings in the description. Uh oh god, I don't even oh god, the review. Ugh. How old is Nancy? I think it's important to talk about the point of how bad it is and why. Yeah, what Ellery said, I'm obviously not Romani. Um but as far as I'm aware, I don't want to cut it out because that would feel to me like sweeping it under the rug. And instead I would like to talk about how fucked this is. Yes, we don't use that word to refer to people. I don't know if it's okay to refer to music that way, but that's why I just said music because I don't know. Nancy Drew and the spooky ooky spec. Nancy Drew and the like overt racism is what we're dealing with right now. The kid, you only have a gender or hair length. Um, politically correct for furniture, music, art, etc. Okay. That was what I thought, but just, being really careful. Um okay, where was I? Oh, this might be the worst thing that we've actually read. Hold the frog in your two hands, the Romani woman ordered. Nancy's skin crawled at the thought of touching the slimy object. She tried to protest, yet somehow the right words failed to come to her lips. Pick up the frog, Madame Zerga insisted sharply. Its magical vibrations help me peer into the future and foresees what life holds for you. Nancy found herself meekly obeying. The swarthy Romani woman began to chant eerily in the strange language which Nancy guessed must be Romani. Suddenly, Nancy's heart skipped a beat. The frog seemed to be coming alive in her hands. She could feel its throat throbbing and in and out. It was actually croaking. Gloop, gloop, gloop. Yes, let's keep talking about the frog and not the other stuff. Nancy wanted to drop the creature like a hot coal, but Madame Zerga's dark eyes fixed her with a piercing glare. Do not let go of the frog, she hissed, or its curse will strike you. The Romani woman's gaze returned to her crystal ball. I see grave trouble ahead. For both you and your father, she droned. He is an attorney. Is he not? Again, her eyes drilled into those of a young detective. Nancy nodded. Some unknown enemy is plotting against you. I can sense his evil power, Madame Zerga declared. The trouble has to do with your father's law practice. What important cases is he handling? I can't tell you, Nancy mumbled. Lawyers aren't allowed to discuss their clients' affairs with outsiders. Side note, can I complain about something that isn't even to do with the racism? Nancy's literally never scared like this with the supernatural. This is just a terrible story all over the place. Like, it's bad, like, for the character. It's bad, obviously, because of the racism. We all need the emotional support frog, I think. Can I take a guess at the problematic twists I imagine coming with the specific things used to describe this woman? Yes, please go ahead. I'm going to pull up, and excuse me if you will, but I'm going to, I'm going to look for an article about, I just want to do a little bit of reading from, somebody more in the know about, like, educationally why all of this is bad at the end. So I'm going to, by the way, do that. But let me just get through the rest of this first so that we never ever have to read it again. Oh, God. Oh, there's way too many pages left. Kittens up this hot mess. Yes, we do. Hang on. Oh. Two. No, wait. Hang on, am I counting wrong? Like 19 pages left? We haven't read that many pages, even though it's taken a year off my life for every page we've read, because this is just so horrible. Yes, thank you for those putting Toad facts in the comments. I appreciate that. Watch soaps, please. Ugh, we gotta get through this. We gotta just finish it. Meme in the server of a cute cat looking angry. Problematic, but I think the twist will be that the Romani woman antagonist stereotype. Oh God, I hope that's not. Oh God, I hope that's not the twist. Oh God, if that's the twist, that's the only thing that could make this worse. Okay, whew. Wait, the woman exclaimed. I see the trouble now. Your enemy has placed a curse on something in your father's office safe. It must be removed at once, or you both may die. Only I can save you from such a curse. Tell me, what is the combination to his safe? Nancy's brain was in a whirl. She could not seem to focus her thoughts. Nevertheless, she sensed that if she stayed Madame Zerga's fortune-telling parlor any longer, she might give up all sorts of private family information. But was she brave enough to defy the woman's threatened curse? Nancy let go of the frog and stood up. Plucking some money from her purse, she dropped it on the table and hurried out of the purple-draped chamber. Behind her, she heard an angry outburst from Madame Zerga ordering her to remain. The commands were followed by a sneering laugh when the woman saw that the teenage client had no intention of obeying. Sorry, they keep using the word over and over, and I'm just desperately trying to fill it in. With a not slur. Outside, Nancy took a deep breath of fresh air, then she walked across the street into Riverview Park. Stopping at a refreshment stand, she bought some orangeade. What the hell is orangeade? A few swallows of ice-cold drink helped to clear her head. She was feeling much better now. Whatever came over me, Nancy wondered. When she fled from the fortune-telling parlor, she had found herself halfway believing that Madame Zerga really possessed occult powers or second sight. Who the fuck wrote this? But now, bit by bit, it was all becoming clear. So can we be done now? Can it be done? Hope I'm wrong. The only reason is that it might be because the focus a lot of... Yeah, I hope you're wrong too. I really hope you're wrong too. Bro, why? Orange Gatorade? Maybe, I guess. I guess Gatorade in the early 80s was kind of a new concept. How had the Romani known her name or the fact that her father was a lawyer? Nothing very surprising about that. Nancy's picture often appeared in the paper In connection with the mysteries she solved, Madame Zerga had simply recognized her. And by the way, Romani racism is some of the most prevalent racism, especially during this time, because we started talking about the negative effects of certain words and stereotypes toward that group, like way later, it feels, than we started talking about just generalized other racism. Obviously, all racism is bad, but like I've noticed that people got away with this particular kind of racism a lot. Type of orange soda. Okay, cool. No doubt the incense gave off some kind of anesthetic fumes. When customers inhaled the vapor, it left them too giddy and confused to hold back any secrets from the fortune teller. No wonder Nancy had felt so woozy. The music probably covered the sound of an exhaust fan, which drew off the fumes and cleared the air before Madame Zerga had made her appearance. But what about the frog? In her imagination, Nancy could still feel the horrid creature breathing in and out and hear its ominous croaking. "Oh, Nancy," a voice called out. The young sleuth turned and saw a school friend named Nicole Lamar hurrying towards her. "Hi, Nikki. Where did you come from?" "Across the street." Nicole seemed a bit breathless. "Didn't I just see you coming out of Madame Zerga's fortune-telling parlor?" Nancy nodded, smiling ruefully. Mary Lukash suspects the woman of running a racket that may get all the local Romani in trouble with the law, so she asked me to expose her, but I almost got victimized myself. "Oh, Nancy, did you really? That's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about." Um, so avoiding tech ghost said no. The bot has it out for us. Oh, God. Nicole was an orphan who lived with her unmarried cousin Yvette Lamar. She related that Ms. Lamar had long been a fan of fortune tellers, so when Madame Zerga opened her parlor in River Heights, Yvette had immediately gone to consult her. "When my cousin got home that evening, I could see she was upset and frightened," Nikki went on, "but she wouldn't tell me what was wrong. Then a few days later, she went to see Madame Zerga again and came home looking even worse. Since then, she's been going to Madame Zerga's fortune-telling parlor only 2 to 3 times a week, and it's turning her into a nervous wreck." "Do you know what she consults Madame Zerga about?" asked Nancy. Nicole shook her head. "Not really. At first, I think it was mostly in fun. Cousin Yvette just likes to hear fortune tellers predict what will happen to her next week or next year, or whether she may take a long trip or meet a man she could fall in love with and marry. But Madame Zerga had told her something that really scared her. Somehow I have a feeling it's connected with the past." Nancy knit her brows. "But you have no idea what it is she's afraid of." Nikki hesitated. "This is just a guess, but would you laugh if I said Cousin Yvette seems to think she's being haunted?" "Of course not. That doesn't mean I believe in ghosts myself, Nikki, but a lot of people do." "Well, here's something else that may sound even sillier. She seems to have an absolute phobia about frogs. We were strolling along the riverbank yesterday evening about sunset near the marshes when the frog suddenly began croaking. Cousin Yvette was so scared she almost jumped out of her skin." Nancy smiled grimly. "That doesn't surprise me." She described the frog Madame Zerga uses to frighten her clients. Nikki shuddered upon hearing how the creature seemed to breathe and croak when held. "Oh, Nancy, please do me a favor," she begged. "Today's Friday. Would you come and stay with me over the weekend to see if you can find out what's troubling Cousin Yvette?" I'm so ready for this story to veer any other way into where we are. Wait. Is that what that means? Is that what means? Didn't have to do her that dirty. Unmarried cousin? Girl, you mean her cousin, right? The narration is so incredibly out of pocket. And for what? And for what? Um, it's like, remember when we covered way back when we covered Mr. Boogedy and it was like, your widow Marion. It's like, I think we can just call her Marion. The narration is very of its time. Yes. Yes, it is. Oh boy. Um Nancy felt sure that Ms. Lamar's problem must be connected with Madame Zerga's fortune-telling scam. Clearing up one mystery might help solve the other as well. All right, she agreed. Come home with me first while I pack some things and tell Hannah. Then I'll drive us to your place. Nikki and her cousin lived in a comfortable old stone house in the outskirts of River Heights. Nancy had already met Yvette Lamar. She was a kindly, attractive woman in her late 40s, but now her face showed signs of strain and sleeplessness. Girl, same. I'm not in my 40s yet, but the strain and sleeplessness, I got that on lock. Over dinner that evening, Nancy drew Ms. Lamar or Nancy Drew. I thought it was like Nancy Drew, like her name. It's Nancy Drew Ms. Lamar into conversation about her background. Nikki says you come from the island of Martinique in the West Indies, she remarked. Yes, I lived there with my uncle when I was a little girl, Yvette replied. He was a sailor and fisherman. He took me in and cared for me after my parents died. Then, when I was 7 or 8, we moved to the United States. He became a ship chandler and did well enough in business to build this house before he retired. The Lamar family, she added, was originally from Alabama, but her great-grandfather, a Confederate colonel... Oh, yeah, sure. Just throw all the racism at the wall. Had gone to the West Indies after the Civil War. Over the years, his descendants had moved back to the United States one by one. My Uncle Lewis was the last one in the family to do so. What fuckery? Problematic bingo! Ugh. For fuck's sake. Over time, people have unlocked the sleepiness trait earlier and earlier. Yep. What? Why? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I need another minute. I need another minute. I need a minute to decleanse. How are you, chat? How are things? Who did this? I genuinely wanna know. And like, all of these books are completely ghost written, so I have no way of knowing who did this. But holy shit. Hang on. Um, I'm just trying to look up some educational content. Because I'm losing, the brain cells are falling out of my ears as we speak. The inspiration for Ransom of the Seven Ships, and I cannot explain further. I know what you mean. Not even a racist against me, and it's horrible. It's just, it makes me genuinely sick when we get to this kind of thing. Because it's gross, right? Like, you're talking about a whole group of people, and now we've entered into disrespecting more than one group of marginalized people in a very disrespectful way. And it's just like, what the fuck are you doing? Want to go see the FNAF movie? Oh yeah, that comes out soon, right? They were like, wait. Oh yeah, we like to call Stone Mountain Racist Mountain here. Yeah, some editor, probably multiple editors, read this and went, yeah, that's fine. And the worst part is, this book is for children. I know this is from the 80s, but here's what I always get on the case of children's literature. Children who are in the age demographic to be reading this have no sense, a lot of the time, of knowing that any of what's being said is wrong. And they're just going to internalize it and continue on. And that is how we perpetuate negative stereotypes. That's literally it. We've brought up that a main character is related to to Confederate soldiers, so there's that. Horror related things, because a lot of them use flashing lights. My mom has a lot of trouble. She doesn't have epilepsy, but she has bad migraines. It runs in our family, and so she really has trouble with flashing lights. It's one of the things that makes me so conscious about always trying to warn you guys, even if there's minimal flashing in videos. Uh, okay. Okay. All right. Let's just keep going. Almost done. Yes, teach the children why it's wrong to break the cycle. If there are any children or anybody that doesn't know, using the word that starts with G to refer to the Romani people is very, very bad. It's a very bad slur that has been used to demean in many, many cases for many, many years. Um, I know it's something that only shockingly recently we've started talking about, but don't use it. And don't perpetuate these stereotypes that Romani people are like liars or con men, because that is a negative stereotype that's literally followed them for centuries as they're oppressed and keep trying to just make a living and exist. So, I'm gonna keep video chat or something. Longer break things. Yes, yes, we can. Ah! Yeah, let's find some cats. I need some cats. Holy shit. It's been a while since we had to pull out the kitten cam. This one has very loud background sound. What's this one? Oh! Oh, Adam McIntyre um, posted. That's what I'm gonna watch when I get off. Very excited. Okay. Let's see. Let me actually do this over here in this browser so that I can still keep my YouTube in a place that can be seen. Oh, apologies for the brief interruptions, guys. No, don't play. No, it's not. We're not doing. I still had the soap operas up, so it was like Edge was like, So you want to watch a soap opera? I was like, no, I would like kittens, please. All right, where's the one?
Now streaming.
No, I don't want a commercial. Jesus Christ. It's a commercial for a very good show, but we can't promote any shows right now that are not SAG cleared because strike. Oh, look at the kitties. Okay. Okay. There we go. Nobody needs to see the book. What I do need, however... Hang on, guys. I'm having a little bit of an issue with OBS. Give me 1 second. I will be right back. Everybody breathe. All right. Hi, I'm back. Okay. Hi, Chris. Soap opera is better than this short story any day. There's a lot that's better than this short story. Yep. Oh. Gift from above. Perry, where are you? You're abandoning us in our time of need. Full screen the cats. It's a full screen cat kind of night. We have deployed Kitten Cam. For those who may not know, Kitten Cam is what we do when we need emotional support. I like that you guys are all just talking about your pets. Oh, what is that? Chris, I don't think I know what that is. Paulo, I think the app was trying to protect you from the shit show that is tonight. We are reading Nancy Drew Ghost Stories, which for the first 4 stories were nice, innocent, Nancy Drew fun, and then story 5 is just the racism bingo story. And I cannot believe this shit. So we are roasting this to all hell, discussing why it's bad, and rethinking all of our life choices. And as you can see, we've gone kitten cam. We've just gone kitten cam. Ghosts to stay with me right now. Are those your cats, Newt and Ghosts? Amazing. Look at the little babies. Oh. This little play tower thing, our cats have the same one and they love it. Oh, they have toppled Minnie Mouse. Minnie Mouse has fallen. When there's kittens, you know it's serious. No, this is like beyond like the little, like every once in a while we'll read something and I'll be like, oh, whoopsie. We don't say that anymore. And then it moves on. This is just like 20 whole pages of just like, yikes. And it really pisses me off. And the only reason I have not skipped the last bit of the story is because it's important to talk about how this stuff is not okay and how pervasive it is in kids' media, because I find it all of the time, and it's really scary, especially when it's in kids' media. Last stream I was in was really wholesome. Yeah, we try to go for wholesome, and then sometimes we're just left to confront stuff like this. Oh, that's cool. All right, let's try to get through the rest of this. Let's just keep going. Let's go. Yep, finish it and never, ever look at it again. But yeah. And I want to tear it apart in it. I want to tear it. I know I haven't done a Goodreads review in a while. We're going to have to write a Goodreads review because I have thoughts. I have thoughts. Okay. Last thing we read, her great-grandfather was a Confederate colonel. Because of course he was. United States, one by one, my Uncle Lewis. Okay. Lucky for me he did, said Nikki with a smile. Jumping up from her chair, she gave the middle-aged woman a fond hug before clearing off the main course dishes to make way for dessert. Later, when dinner was over and the two girls helped Cousin Yvette load the dishwasher, all three settled down in the oak-beamed living room to chat and watch television. What a lovely fireplace, Nancy exclaimed. My uncle built it himself, said Yvette. He was a jack of all trades and would have been a good stonemason. He even carved that ship design in some of the stones. Soon after 11 o'clock, they retired for the night. Nancy's room was directly across the hall from Nicole's. After changing, the two girls talked a while longer as they brushed their hair before going to bed. Settling down in her own room, Nancy read for a few minutes. When she felt herself getting drowsy, she turned off the light. This story is not making me drowsy. I was sleepy, and now my fight or flight is kicking in. The kittens can barely waddle. I know. Look at the kittens. It makes it look like you're reading to them. Luckily, the kittens who are innocent to this world are being spared. Me, shells, a brain cell. Put this story when you're done and pretend it doesn't exist. Tear the chapter out and make a video of burning the racist pages. Something needs to be done. I don't know what needs to be done, but something needs to be done. Yes, you guys can hear Avery, and Avery is very sorry about that. Ugh. That's how disturbed I am. I've now said my own name in the third person. Okay. It seemed that Nancy, if she had hardly drifted off to sleep when she woke with a start. A scream echoed throughout the house. Nancy sprang out of bed and pulled on a robe. Nikki was already poking her head out of her own doorway. She looked pale and frightened. That was Cousin Yvette, she gasped. Where's her room? Nancy asked. On the other side of the house. Just then another faint scream was heard. Come on, let's find out what's wrong, Nancy urged. Together, the two girls ran to Ms. Lamar's room, Nikki pointing the way. A muffled creak came from somewhere inside. Nancy knocked hastily, then flung open the door. Cousin Yvette was sitting upright in her bed, big-eyed with fear. Look, she quavered with a trembling hand, pointed to the window. The ghostly glowing apparition of a frog could be seen on the window curtain. Another croak reverberated, and then another, and another. Gloop, gloop, gloop. It sounded exactly like the repulsive frog in Madame Zerga's fortune-telling parlor. The two girls stood totally still, shocked by the vision, but Nancy quickly snapped out of her trance and ran to the window. As she did so, the ghostly frog faded from view. Nancy pulled aside the curtain and peered out into the darkness. Nothing seemed to be moving on the grounds or in the garden. All that was visible were the moonlit forms of trees and shrubbery. Nancy turned back to the window and saw that Cousin Yvette was still shaking with fright. Let's make some cocoa, Nancy said to Nicole. Then we can talk about what happened. By the time all three were seated in the bright, cozy living room, sipping their hot drinks, the girls' mood had become more cheerful. Even Cousin Yvette seemed to take heart from Nancy's calm, matter-of-fact manner. Were we all just imagining things? Yvette asked. Nancy shook her head. No, we did hear croaks, and that glowing frog did appear in your window, but I doubt that was a ghost or anything else supernatural. Then what were we seeing? I'm not sure. I have a vague idea, but there's no use discussing it until it can be checked out. Nancy hesitated, then said, "Tell me, have you always been afraid of frogs?" Ms. Lamar frowned and passed a hand over her forehead. I don't really know. Perhaps something happened once that made them seem unpleasant. I guess I just never thought about it until I went to see a fortune teller recently. Madame Zerga? Yes, on learning that, Nancy too had visited the blank woman and handled the weird frog. Cousin Yvette seemed relieved and willing to talk more freely. It was right after I started going to Madame Zerga. She related that I began having nightmares and seeing that horrible frog. Then tonight wasn't the first time, Nancy inquired. Oh no, I keep seeing the frog and hearing it croak night after night. On a lighter note, does anybody remember that episode of Everybody Loves Raymond where Robert's girlfriend is obsessed with frogs and she eats flies? I hate this story so much, Ellery. I hate it so much. The gay frogs. Do we want more people to hear this? Probably not. But I would like to have a teaching moment about how bad this is. Which is why we're finishing the story. But the story itself is the worst I have ever read, I think. Frog! Turn the friggin' frogs gay! Sorry. We are almost done. We're almost done. We're almost done. We're almost done. We're almost done. Oh my god, we're almost there. Has Madame Zerga offered to help you? Yes, but mostly she just asked me questions about my past life and especially about my Uncle Louis. Ms. Lamar said that although she was only a small child at the time, she remembered that when they had moved from the West Indies to the United States, her uncle had seemed worried and fearful, as if afraid some terrible misfortune might befall them. But none ever did, Nancy asked. Far from it. His business prospered and our life was very happy. But during his final illness, he started worrying again. Just before he died, Cousin Yvette said, my uncle murmured, 7 stones tell the truth, but it is better that my secret remain bottled up forever. Fuck you, you Confederate son of a bitch. Nancy and Nikki exchanged puzzled looks. Did you tell that to Madame Zerga? Nancy asked. Yes, and I also gave her a bottle of stones. Ms. Lamar explained that after her uncle passed away, she had found the bottle on his closet shelf. It contained exactly 7 stones. They look like ordinary pebbles to me, she went on, but I kept them anyhow. When I gave them to Madame Zerga, I didn't think she could discover anything special about them. At any rate, she keeps telling me that if I want to save myself from telling me that if I want to save myself from the curse of the frog, I must find out my uncle's secret and tell it to her. There was a brief silence. Nikki had kindled a small fire beside the grate to ward off the night's chill. Nancy gazed thoughtfully into the flickering flames while she tried to unravel the mystery. As she turned back to face her 2 companions, she gave a sudden start. Your uncle mentioned 7 stones? She asked. Yes, why? Nancy pointed to the fireplace. There are exactly 7 of those stones, and your Uncle Louis carved a ship on. Both Cousin Yvette and Nikki were startled by the odd coincidence, but neither they nor the girl detective could figure out what it might mean. The stones were arranged like an upside-down V enclosed in the fireplace opening. When Nancy tested them, she found that all were were firmly mortared into place and could not be moved. Next morning, directly after breakfast, the doorbell rang. Nikki went to answer. A few moments later, she ushered a tall, craggy-faced man with a brush-cut iron gray hair into the room. He held his hat in one hand and had a camera slung around his neck. Nikki introduced him. This is Mr. Karnak. He writes pieces for an interior decoration magazine and would like to do a feature story on your fireplace, Cousin Yvette. This story is all over the place, but at least we've had a few pages, a couple pages at least, free from racism. So we're just gonna keep going. Ride that until we can't anymore. Yes, slaughter this book, bovine. Human hiss. That if you're talking about the little toy that they have, I think, but I don't quote me on this. I think that's Thumper from Bambi, because they also have a Minnie Mouse. Oh! Are we betting on the kittens? Wow, those are a lot. She had a big litter of kittens. It's such a low bar that we found ourselves at. The bar is in hell. Actually, the bar is like so down low that even Satan's reaching down below hell and going, "Here you go. Here's the bar." Mallow. Okay. Oh, look at the little ginger one. Oh, they're so roly-poly. This is whose stream is this? Just so that I don't. This is Adorable Stars Kittens. If anybody would like to check them out. A lot of these channels that we watch, these kitten cams, are in affiliation with. They're either foster houses or they're in affiliation with some kind of rescue. So, Satan dropped the bar off a cliff. That's how bad the bar. That's how low the bar has gotten. Below has gone. The bar has gone below hell and is in the abyss. Yep. All right. Someone told our editor about it, he explained, and mentioned the beautiful hand-carved stones. Do you mind if I photograph them? As he spoke, his eyes were busy studying the carvings. Ms. Lamar readily gave permission. Mr. Karnak snapped a number of pictures, moving closer and closer to the fireplace as he did so. When he finished photographing, he took out a small penknife and tried to insert the blade around the edges of one of the carved stones. Nancy, who had been watching all this with a slight frown, suddenly spoke up. "What are you doing, Mr. Karnak?" "Just seeing if any of the stones are loose. I thought Ms. Lamar might let me take them to my studio so I could photograph them close up in better lighting." "Wouldn't it be more polite to ask her permission before you scrape away any of the mortar?" The man's gaze flickered uncertainly toward Ms. Lamar. And Nancy went on, "In any case, I can tell you that the stones aren't loose and don't come out. What magazine did you say you write for, Mr. Karnak?" "I didn't say." "Then what would you care to tell us now, and also who mentioned the fireplace to your editor?" The visitor's expression hardened nastily. "You don't seem to trust me, young lady. I've been a writer for years, and I certainly don't have to show you my credentials." Turning to his hostess, he added huffily, "I am intruding where I'm not wanted, Ms. Lamar. Please forgive me." Without another word, Karnak stalked out of the room and left the house. Nancy and Nikki watched from the window as he drove away. Nancy had spoken on the spur of a moment, and the incident left her a bit upset. "Please forgive me if I spoke out of turn," she said to her hostess. "Somehow, I don't trust that man." "Don't worry, dear. I'm glad you questioned him as you did," Ms. Lamar assured her. "In my opinion, you took exactly the right tone. One can be too careful One can't be too careful of strangers these days. After an early lunch, Nancy excused herself for an hour or two. She explained that she had to shop for a gift for a friend's 3-year-old child. I'd ask you to come with me, Nikki, she added privately, but after that visit from Mr. Karnak, I think it might be best not to leave your cousin here alone. Toward evening, it began to rain and the wind rose. After dinner, Cousin Yvette and the two girls gathered in front of the fireplace. Yvette described a thrilling rescue at sea which her uncle had once told her about. If I only knew the secret that worried him all those years, she sighed. Somehow I feel that's the key to whatever is haunting the house. Haunting this house. Is his room still the way it is when he died? Nancy asked. Yes, everything's exactly as he left it. Would you like to see for yourself? Very much. We might find a clue. The big chintz-curtained bedroom clearly bespoke a seafaring man. Wait. In the closet hung a broad-brimmed Suester hat? I have no idea what that is. An oilskins, a brass-bound telescope stood on a work table near the windows, and on the dresser lay several scrimshawed ivory knickknacks. Oh, look at them in the pile. So cute. Oh, the credentials of who wrote the story. Oh, I would love. Sub to the kitten channel. Yay! Yay! Gazing about the room, Nancy ran over Louis Lamar's last words in her mind. 7 stones tell the truth, but it's better that my secret remain bottled up forever. A bottle! Her eyes had just fallen on a handcrafted toy vessel in a bottle. The vessel was a 2-masted schooner. Nancy walked over to examine it more closely. Every bit of canvas, cordage, and other details were scaled to size, evidently by a loving hand. Then she noticed the schooner's name painted in tiny gold letters on the stern counter. La Grenole? I don't know how to say that word. Nancy gasped excitedly and looked at Ms. Lamar. Do you speak French? I used to, but I'm afraid I've forgotten most of it. Why? The schooner is named the Frog. Oh, I probably said that very wrong. I'm sorry. Cousin Yvette's eyes widened and her face drained of color. She clapped both hands to her cheeks and sank down heavily on the crazy quilted bed. Oh no, she murmured in a shocked voice. Now I remember. Remember what? Asked Nikki. Why frogs seem so dreadful to me, Yvette related. That once, when she was a little girl in the West Indies, she had gone looking for her uncle along the beach one evening, spying a glimmer of light from a cave overlooking the sea. She peered inside. To her horror, she saw a group of men with heads like frogs squatting around a fire. What the what? What? Frog. Don't tell me I was right. I think I was right, but don't tell me I was right. She's actually narrating. I'm calling it. It's cursed, but I'm calling it, and I cannot expect better from this. Oh, I hope you're wrong. I really hope you're wrong. I really hope you're wrong. Y'all just wanted to have a calm night and read a book and chill out and talk about stuff. That's all we wanted. I have several questions too. Let's keep going. I also love how she's like, oh, all of a sudden, I remember this now. I was scared to death, she went on. Then one of the creatures jumped up and pulled off his frog's head, and I saw that it was my Uncle Lewis. He had just been wearing a mask, but I was crying and screaming. He calmed me down and took me home and warned me I must never tell anyone what I'd seen. How weird, Nikki said with a shudder. What do you suppose he and his friends were doing? Cousin Yvette shrugged weakly. I can't imagine, but I had nightmares for weeks afterwards. Nancy's brain was whirring quickly, seeking further clues. Let's go back to the living room, she exclaimed. I've just had an idea. Moments later, pointing to the carved stones of the fireplace, she went on. You'll notice the vessel in all these carvings is a two-masted schooner, just like the one in the bottle. Nicole added, You're right, but so what? The 7 stones are arranged like an arrowhead, pointing upward. I'm wondering what they point to. Nancy ran her fingers upward from the topmost stone, then stopped just below the mantle. Wait till I get a flashlight from my car. When she returned, Nancy aimed the flashlight so as to dispel the shadow cast by the mantelpiece. We only have like 4 more pages left, thank God. Thank all the gods for that. Forgot a mystery was going on too. I just thought it was racist bingo. Problematic bingo. When she returned, Nancy aimed the flashlight so as to dispel the shadow cast by the mantelpiece. Etched to one of the stones with a line so fine it could barely be seen was the outline of a frog. And the stone's loose, Nancy added, pressing it with her fingers. There was a creaking noise. A bookcase on the right of the fireplace suddenly began to swing outward from the wall. Look, Nikki gasps. There's a stone staircase inside. The steps went downward, hearts beating nervously. The trio set out to explore where they led. Nancy took the lead, followed by Cousin Yvette, with Nikki bringing up the rear. At the foot of the stairs was a gloomy passageway. Their steps echoed hollowly in the darkness, and walked along, guided by the flashlight. They made their way to a stone-walled room. At the far side of the room stood an old sea chest with a cement frog perched on top of it. On the wall behind the chest hung a pike or boat hook crossed with an old-time sailor's cutlass. Oh, goodness, said Cousin Yvette in a shaky voice. Dare we open the chest? Why not, said Nancy boldly. We came down here to solve the mystery, didn't we? Even Nancy's fed up with this shit. With Nikki's help, she lifted off the heavy cement frog, which had seemed to be protecting the chest like a watchdog. Then they pried open the creaky lid. The chest was heaped with jewelry. Rings, bracelets, gold watches, necklaces, pearl stick pins, a bewildering variety of valuables. There were also folded papers, which Nancy opened and read. Nikki, meanwhile, was fingering through the jewelry. Where did all this come from? She asked in an awestruck tone. Excuse me. Who has the other half of my brain still? Not me. I wouldn't blame you if you just completely tuned out of the story at this point, Luz. It's fine. For drawing later. Oh, so cute. Chat is all sharing one brain cell. Thank you. It ran away. There's a special place in hell for whoever wrote this story. This might be the worst thing we've ever read. Have we found something worse than Model Land? Have we? I think we might have. I think this might be the worst thing we've ever read. Okay. Okay, almost done. Who cares, said a harsh voice which Nancy and her 2 companions had heard earlier that day. The important thing is you found it. They all three looked up and saw Mr. Karnak. The craggy-faced imposter chuckled as he entered the room, clutching a weapon in one hand. Madame Zerga followed close behind. How kind of you to unravel Louis Lamar's secret for us, Ms. Drew. He taunted. What a pity you won't be able to enjoy the results of your clever detective work. What makes you think I won't? Nancy said calmly. Because we intend to shut all three of you up in this underground crypt, rasped Karnak. He stooped down to gloat over the treasure, adding, by the time you're found, if ever, none of you will be alive to tell the police what happened. I'm afraid you're forgetting something, said Nancy. Indeed? And what might that be, Ms. Busybody? Nancy pointed to the passageway, and her voice sank to a fearful hiss, the curse of the frog. An ominous croaking resounded through the stone-walled chamber. Glup, glup, glup. Karnak stared in open-mouthed disbelief as Madame Zerga clutched her throat with a look of dumbfounded terror. A huge green frog was hopping toward them. With their attention distracted, Nancy seized her chance. She snatched down the pike of the cutlass from the wall. Ned, catch, she cried, and tossed them through the air. Her tall... Where did Ned come from? Where did Ned come from? We have Ned to worry about now. I can't describe it any other way. Dog Uncle Colt story thing is not a string of words I thought I'd ever see. I was wrong. I'm so happy. I could cry. I'm so happy that you were wrong. Because for 1 second, I really thought you were right, and I didn't want you. That one time, I did not want you to be right. Where the fuck did Ned come from? Why did they have to hit us with that on top of everything else? It just went from bad to worse. It could be worse. No, it could be worse. Her tall, husky boyfriend, Ned Nickerson, and Bert Eddleton, a fellow member of his college football team, of character that's wholeheartedly useless. He kind of, every once in a while, pops in to be a love interest for Bess, but it doesn't. Or maybe George, I can't remember, but it doesn't matter. Ned jump scare? Suddenly Ned? Imagining a human-sized frog and it hurts. That's legit. Ned was not here before at all. He's here. Yeah, I have questions. My brain can't compute. Had suddenly appeared out of the darkened passageway. Ned caught the pike and his pal, the cutlass. Before Karnak could collect his wits and react, Ned swung the pike and knocked the crook's weapon from his hand. Half an hour later, Karnak and Madame Zerga were seated in the living room with their wrists tied, waiting sullenly. Where did Madame Zerga even come from? She just showed up. Oh no, she did follow close behind. Okay, sorry. My brain, it's too much. Tonight is taking time off my life. Waiting sullenly for a police car to come and take them away. Ned and Bert, meanwhile, were using the electronic detector to sweep the house for eavesdropping bugs. I still don't understand is that how that works? Where that huge frog came from, said Cousin Yvette in bewilderment. Nancy's eyes twinkled. I bought it today at a toy shop. Ned stuffed the little tape recorder inside to play the croaking noises. The tape recorder, she explained, came from a clump of bushes under Yvette's bedroom window. Inside it was a tape cassette on which amplified frog croaking had been recorded. And a slide projector hidden inside a hollow tree in the garden had beamed the ghostly picture of a frog at her window curtain. Ned says both the recorder and projector were radio controlled, Nancy added. Wait a second, you're going too fast, Nikki begged. How did you discover all this? I guessed last night that this was how the ghostly frog trick was played, Nancy replied. It was the only possible explanation, so when I went out to shop, I phoned Ned and asked him to come in quietly through the back garden and search for the equipment without disturbing you two. Karnak's snooping visit, she went on, convinced her that somehow he must have overheard the conversation about the fireplace stones, which meant the house must have been bugged, it says in quotes. I don't know why they put it in quotes. So I knew if we did find out Uncle Louis's secret, Nancy said, Karnak and Madame Zerga would probably overhear and try to take over. That's why I had Ned prepare the toy frog and stay around to keep watch so we could use their own trick against them. Finally, a little more relaxed, Yvette opened the note that had been found in the chest. The letter told where the jewelry came from. As a young man, Yvette's uncle had joined a pirate gang. Okay. Wearing frog masks, the gang would attack yachts and cabin cruisers and steal whatever valuables they could find aboard. Troubled by pangs of guilt, Uncle Louis had finally quit the gang and fled to the United States, taking the loot with him. Stashed at the bottom of the chest was the pirate schooner's log, which contained the names of every boat they had robbed. With this information, Louis Lamar hoped someday to return the stolen jewelry to its rightful owners, but hiding out fearful from the gang's vengeance, he had never found time or courage to carry out his plan. At the end of his life, he had half hoped, half feared that his niece Yvette would find and return the loot for him. Therefore, he had left her various clues. The bottle of pebbles was a red herring to throw off anyone in the gang who might come looking for the treasure. When the police arrived and questioned Karnak, he sullenly admitted he was the pirate leader's son. Although trained as an electronics engineer, he spent years trying to track down Louis Lamar. After finding out Louis was dead, Karnak had learned that his niece Yvette liked to go to fortune tellers, so he hired Madame Zerga to terrorize her into revealing where the treasure was hidden. He himself posed as a telephone repairman in order to get into the house and plant the bugs. What about Madame Zerga's frog? Asked Nikki, who had listened in fascination while Nancy explained her detective work. Well, actually, she just used the frog as a means of tempting everyone. That she used a frog as a means of tempting everyone was just a coincidence. It's a pretty clever frog, too. Ned says it probably contains a heat-sensitive switch, replied Nancy. Her boyfriend nodded. That's right. And when the frog gets warm from being held in someone's hand, the switch closes, and that's what turns on the mechanism to make it go glop, glop, glop. At least that's my guess. But if you expect us to go to her fortune-telling parlor tonight to find out for sure, no thanks, Nancy added with a smile. Let's sit here and tell ghost stories. Oh my god, it's over. Holy shit, it's over. What the Am I dreaming? Am I dreaming? What? Holy shit. Scooby-Doo style exposition dump. Holy crap, yay. Jesus. Would it make sense in closer attention to the story, or is it literally just like an exposition dump? It's literally just an exposition dump. No, you're not crazy. It's just an exposition dump. There's not one single redeeming quality. Ned is Nancy's boyfriend. He's terrible. We don't like him. We're dreaming. We're having the same horrible dream. Holy shit. Hang on. Sorry to take the kittens away for a second. Actually, no, I'm going to look up on my phone because I feel bad taking the kittens away in this time of crisis. That was horrible. That was just genuinely horrible. I hated that. Why does she have a boyfriend? Because back in the 30s, people were afraid that she was too independent and feminist. She does not need a boyfriend. At best, he's just there to be her boyfriend, and at worst, he's a really shitty boyfriend, so we don't like him. Okay. Ugh. At best, he's just there. At worst, he speaks. I have exactly one question. If it was about a frog cult, why were the racist Romani stereotypes and slurs necessary? That is a very, very good question, right? Because the racist slurs are never necessary, but it's almost like we didn't need them at all. Like, we didn't, they weren't even central, and they just got shoehorned in to be racist. Wait, are you guys getting an ad? You're not supposed to be getting an ad. Hang on. I want to turn my ads off because I officially don't want to make money off of the stream. Straight up. Oh, you got an ad on kittens. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. On the kitties. Okay. Cool. I just wanted to make sure because I don't want to run any more ads on this stream. I'm good. Oh, give me a second, guys. I need a second. Holy shit. That was terrible. I'm very tired. Not from this channel. Okay. No, I don't want to make any ad revenue for this story. I'm glad that I'm not glad that by any means that story exists. I'm always down to have a teaching moment about how bad this is. This is probably the worst I've seen. We've run into a lot of Romani racism, but this is something on a different level. This was so much. The frog cult, why racism? That's all I think. Holy shit. It's okay. We don't need to like the stream. I don't know what. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Stay in my box. We have one more story that should be a normal story, knock on wood, but I just need a second. I don't know why, but racism against Romani people to this day, stuff still gets away with, and it pisses me off, and I'm really tired of seeing it. They brought the 1880s to the 1980s. Yeah. For the author just to be racist. Yeah. Yeah, that was bad. That was really bad. That was really, really bad, and I did not like it. Okay. I'll just crochet my pumpkin. Ooh, I need to crochet a pumpkin. Excellent way to put it, Jonathan. The story was literally at the end. It was a useless story. Lighter note, I bought spider rings and spooky stickers to make Halloween goodie bags. Yay! That is a lighter note. And they said, I'ma be racist. They just pasted at the end and then got permission to write it and said, I'ma be racist. Yeah. Ooh. Thank you guys for sticking with me for that so that we could bash it and talk about how bad it is. I was trying to look up because there are some very talented Romani creators that I wanted to direct people to speak more about this, since, they can give a better education than I ever could. But I'm Mallow got me through. Yeah. Yeah, I just glanced up every once in a while and the kittens were there. Thanks, Ghost Rider. We all hate it. That was terrible. That was genuinely just terrible. Sorry, I've gone quiet for a second. I'm just trying to process. I'm just They needed a reason to have Nancy meet Madame Z, and they're like, I know fortune teller shop, and then Swan dived into the racist deep end of stereotypes. It was really bad. It's only up from here. The floor was as low as possible. I know it was the 80s, but how the fuck did that get through every person who so much of the Drew team tends to be very progressive and likely would have been aware of the problem even then? My only thought, and this is not like an excuse for them, but my only thought is only in the past few years do I feel like people have actually been talking about the harmfulness of the G slur and all of this stuff. So the only thing I can think is in the early 80s, we just weren't having those conversations. That doesn't make any of it okay. But if we're genuinely wondering like how this happened, that might be how it happened. Maybe they thought they were being progressive by being like the other Roma girl is like she's giving the real Roma bad. I don't know. I don't know what they thought they were doing, but they didn't do it. Whatever it was, I don't know. Spiky Mike, is it Spiky Mike or am I just yelling because I'm angry? It could be that. The bar is below hell. It can't possibly get lower. Don't say that. We don't know that. He was yelling. Sorry, I was yelling. Hi, Bowser Jr. You came in at a very good time because the story that we just read in the book was very bad. It was very racist, and I did not appreciate it at all. So yeah, that was horrible. I hated that. Sorry, I was yelling. Yeah, I'll unpin the warning now. I was yelling because I was mad at the book. I'm not mad at any of you. All of you are wonderful, lovely people. Oh. What's on my t-shirt? Oh, I'm wearing my Hex Girls t-shirt that Noah sent me. From Scooby-Doo. I don't need to read the pattern. Why would I? You don't need the pattern. You can just wing it. That's what patterns are, right? I'm so glad you were wrong, Ellery. I, I I don't know what I would do if you hadn't been wrong. I think I would have literally taken this book and I would have thrown it into the other room and I would have rage quit the stream. Jump of my mom's dog. I think it's funny. We're all mad at the book. I'm just glad. Ugh. Yeah, well, that's what we thought. Aside from that one story, which took away all the points that this book had, the other stories were fine. They were fine little Nancy Drew ghost stories. We have one more. Woo! That took so long to get through because I had to keep stopping to yell. That took up. I'm so glad I didn't try to cram this entire book into Wednesday's stream. I cannot imagine having to do this at like 1 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, luckily the young ones are not here. I want to see you burning story to a crisp. I need to do something. I know we've just fully covered it, and part of me is like, I don't want to give it any more screen time than we already got. It wouldn't have gotten any screen time if I knew beforehand, but since we were here, I figured we might as well not sweep it under the rug and just let it get bashed for how bad it is. So I don't want to give it more screen time, but I feel like, I don't know, I feel like something needs to be done. I don't know. That was, oof. Hopefully, I hope. Let's try to move on, finish it, then bury. Yeah. Yep. Yep. You'll be okay. We'll be okay. We'll recover. I just always feel so terrible because, like, real people are affected by this shit. And it just pisses me off that, like, I don't know. It just pisses me off when we get to media that just perpetuates this stuff. Unmarked grave. Went to the movies, and now all the cats are like, "Hi, Mom, what you doing? Ooh, string!" Perry really loves to chase around the yarn ball when I'm crocheting. All right. How are we doing? Have we all recovered as much as we can? Proceeds go to a Romany run charity or something. That's a wonderful idea. Let's I want to look and see what kind of charities run into that. Um yeah, that's a really good idea. I want to do that. Let's see. Let me read this last story. And then I'll do some research. Because I really would like that. Also, if anybody knows of any Romani creators that they would like to... I know some people have done very good videos about all of this stuff and, you know... might be good to direct people there for educational researches. Can't find the bleach. I need to wash it. I need to wash out my brain. Who took it? Let me try to see. Ugh, and then I got James Charles jump scared on my dash. Welcome, foolish mortals. Hello, artists. Stay hydrated, even in these trying times. No, Shell. All right, let's read this last story. Hopefully it'll be better. If it's not, I'm going to punt this book. All right, let's read this story and then write the review because I have words. And then Florian is a creator here on YouTube who is Romani and makes shorts. Talks about Romani representation in media, actual Roman history. I didn't know. Ooh! Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm going to look him up. Thank you. That was his name. Woo! Florian. Here. I'm dropping his link. Modfather coming in clutch, yes. And I do want to find a Romani-led charity or nonprofit to follow or to support in some way. But yeah, let me read this last story and then we'll get our thing written and then we'll do some. This might turn into a bit of a research stream. All right. Modfather rules. Yes. Thank you, mods. Our mods are continuously keeping our community safe. And especially in times like this where we come across something out of the blue that's just really bad, I'm especially now, but always very grateful for you guys. So thank you. Okay. Let's do this. Let's go. We can do this. The Greenhouse Ghost. It was a very racist story, Patrick. We spent a lot of time talking shit about it because it deserved it. Nancy, how would you like to own a little house in the country with a beautiful garden, a swimming pond, and a greenhouse? Mr. Drew asked his attractive 18-year-old daughter, rumpling her reddish blonde hair. Sounds great, Dad, she replied, but what's the occasion? It's not my birthday or Christmas or... The tall, athletic-looking lawyer smiled. Does there have to be an occasion for me to give you a gift? A house? But this is no ordinary one, Nancy said. Knowing her astute father's knack for teasing, she added, What's up? Okay, he admitted, there's such a property for sale, but no one will buy it unless you solve the mystery of the greenhouse ghost. Tell me about it, she said eagerly. Mr. Drew explained that the owner, now deceased, had prided himself on producing the finest orchids in the country. Nancy, you must have heard of Laforge orchids. Oh, yes, I have. Brides love them for their weddings. For their wedding bouquets. Exactly, the lawyer continued. Mr. Laforge built up a very prosperous business with his wife. Then suddenly trouble began. A vandal or vandals smashed glass, stole or ruined flowers ready to be shipped out, and caused terrible havoc at the estate. Poor Mrs. Laforge died of a sudden heart attack, and her husband passed away soon afterwards. I'm co-executor of the estate with the bank. There children want to sell the property, but a rumor that the greenhouse has a ghost keeps people from looking at the place. That's a shame, Nancy remarked. It all sounds very mysterious, but I'm not afraid to go out to the place with you. Let's drive out and meet the ghost. We only have like 10 pages left. I think. 10-ish. Let's see. Before they could start, Nancy's little dog Togo ran up to her, whimpering and giving staccato barks. Does that just mean like short, loud barks? So you want to go along too? She said and opened the door for her father's car. At once, Togo jumped in and settled himself in the front seat. Oh, Togo. Nancy climbed in on the passenger's side as Mr. Drew sat down behind the wheel. On the way, Nancy and her father discussed the raising of orchids. Mr. Drew said that while they grew in several countries with tropical climates, they were first discovered in Malaysia. That's where Mr. LaForge went to pick out various varieties to bring back here and propagate for commercial use. Our florist told me, said Nancy, that Mr. LaForge was secretly trying to produce a deep blue orchid and guard his secret well. He'd almost finished working out the formula when he suddenly died. Interesting, Mr. Drew replied. I heard that too. His children can't find it, though. Oh, look, here we are. He slowed down to enter a shady driveway with stone entrance pillars. On one had been carved the word Orchidiana. That's what the LaForges call this place, the lawyer told Nancy. The girl detective was charmed by the picturesque gardens of cultivated and wild flowers. When she saw the house, Nancy gasped. Dad, you said it was small, she exclaimed. Why? It would take a week just to clean the windows. Her father explained that the family had used only the center section to live in. One wing was for displaying the orchids, the gardens occupied the other, smaller wing. As if he had heard his name called, a man came from the left wing. The short, rotund, dark-haired man introduced himself as Joe Hendricks. I'm Nancy Drew, and this is my father, she said. What a beautiful place this is. I can't wait to see it all. I'm on my way to the large greenhouse, the gardener said. Would you like to see that first or the house? We did say the frog story was worse than Model Land. No, any non-racist Nancy Drew books I can read? Yes. Yes, there are. There are plenty of non-racist Nancy Drew books. This one isn't an... Usually we don't have... Usually, if anything, Nancy Drew ends up being... Well, I don't want to say that. Everything is kind of a product of its time. But it's been a while since we've seen anything this egregious. Yeah, stick with the, stick with, like, the, Nancy Drew files. Those are the, also 80s, but into the 90s, they have a lot of ones. Like, or the Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys, like, Crime for Christmas and all those fun things. Yeah, the Christmas crossover. Crime for Christmas. Yeah, there's hundreds of Nancy Drew books. Many of them are not racist, but I guess this one just said hello. No, I love Nancy Drew. Um, but that was bad. That was really bad. Um, Nancy glanced at her father, who nodded. I'd like to go to the greenhouse, she said. Maybe you can tell me something about the ghost. Hendrix eyed her intently, and his shoulders twitched. He did not reply for several seconds. Regaining his composure, he replied, Oh, you've heard the story? Don't pay attention to it. Rumor, that's all. There's no ghosts in the greenhouse. Nancy said no more. She and her father followed the man and presently came to an enormous greenhouse. It was dome-shaped and made entirely of glass. Nancy assumed that the panes shattered by vandals had been replaced. The visitors followed Hendrix inside. At once, a young man came forward and was introduced by Hendrix as Kiki. He's my assistant, the gardener explained. Nancy, who had been in Hawaii some time before, asked Kiki, Your name sounds Polynesian. Are your ancestors from that area? Please don't get racist towards Polynesian people. Please don't get racist again. Please, please, please. Yes, tell me, Nancy said, as she and her father followed him down a long aisle between arbors of exquisite dendrobium orchids. What smells so sweet? Not the orchids. No, we also grow roses and several varieties of lilies, Kiki answered. They're sold mostly to the local florists. Please don't be racist. Please don't be racist. Please don't be racist. Please, 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 please. It's sad that just the mention of somebody from a different culture, we have to worry. Now we're like on alert. The end of the aisle was a door to an enclosed room. On the door hung a sign, no admittance. What's in there? Nancy asked. It's an experiment room, Kiki replied, but did not elaborate. This must be when the secret orchid research was carried on. Nancy thought, how could she find out yet not seem too curious? Her mind whirled. Was there something else going on in there now? Was it legitimate business or an undercover operation? Nancy, we must go and see the rest of the property, Mr. Drew spoke. He turned and headed back to the entrance. Nancy followed. Hendrix and Kiki jumped into a small truck and led the way to the attractive colonial house. As the group entered, Nancy gasped. A winding stairway stretched upward from a gracious hall. Halfway down from the second floor stood a ghostly figure. It had long, straight white hair, pretty snow-white face, and wore a flowing, tiered white chiffon gown. I assume that's this ghost that's on the cover. I timeshare my soul to me to collect. Holy shit. I'm sorry. Oh god, that was so funny. I mean, this is not funny, but that was very funny. Yes, the 1930s. I've never read it, but the 1930s versions of some of those Nancy Drew books were bad, and so they were updated, thankfully. Um, like in the version that you can buy now, they took out the whole overt racism in the first book, which thankfully they did that. I did not read the 1930s edition. No, we didn't read the 1930s edition. We read the updated 50s or 60s edition where that character is just swapped out for like a white guy, and he's just like a white southern guy. I'm glad I could bring some levity back. Because a lot newer and has this bullshit that makes it worse. True. Yeah, the newer makes it worse. Yeah, we definitely didn't read the 1930s edition. We read the newer edition. Which still had some weird, like, anti-Semitic undertones in the beginning. If anybody remembers that, I remember being like, "Huh, that's suspicious." But yeah. All right. Let's see. Where was I? It's an experiment room. This must be where the secret orchid research was carried on. Nancy thought, how could she find out, yet not seem too curious? Her mind whirled. Was there something else going on there now? Was it a legitimate business or an undercover operation? Nancy, we must go and see the rest of the property. Mr. Drew spoke up. He turned and headed back to the entrance. Nancy followed. Hendrix and Kiki jumped into a small truck and led the way to the attractive colonial house. I already read this, but I had lost my place. I'm sorry. Um, As the group entered, Nancy gasped. A winding stairway stretched upward from the gracious hall. A halfway down from the second floor stood a ghostly figure. Right, okay. It had long, straight white hair, pretty snow-white face, and wore a flowing, tiered white chiffon gown. Its right hand, which was stretched to the side, held a glass tube from which dripped a dark blue fluid. Hendrix gave a startled gurgle and bolted out the front door, followed by Kiki. Nancy and her father continued to stare. The ghost moved closer to them. Upon reaching the hall, however, it turned, went under the stairway, and disappeared. Where did it go? Mr. Drew asked. Nancy pointed to a door under the stairway, ran to it, and yanked the door open. The ghost was not there. A stairway led downward. As Nancy put one foot onto the step below. Put one foot in front of the other. Oh. Good night, Shell. Good night. Too tense. Sorry, Shell. Thank you, Shell. I promise next time we will have a not so tense time. That's where the original Haunted Mansion bride had been. As Nancy put one foot onto the step below, Mr. Drew grabbed her arm. No, he said, you mustn't take chances. Oh, Dad, please don't stop me. Come with me, Nancy pleaded. She touched the wall switch, flooding the basement with light. Reluctantly, her father followed but kept tight hold of her arm. Within seconds, both Drews began to sneeze. The place was damp and smelled quite moldy. The ghost was not in sight. The Drews were amazed at the basement, which seemed to be a sunless greenhouse. Many rows of benches held pots of potting material, but no growth showed above the surface. Nancy poked a finger down into a pot and felt a tiny bulb. An orchid, she exclaimed. I guess the growers start these in the dark. Mr. Drew sighed with a smile. Nancy, I'm beginning to have second thoughts about buying Orchidiana for you. Even without the ghost to worry about, there's more to do here than I think you could manage. Nancy chuckled softly, then suddenly turned serious. Dad, let's go back upstairs. I want to examine the dark blue fluid. I have a hunch about it. When they reached the front hall, Nancy began searching the floor for spots. Finding one, she wiped it up with her finger, smelled it, then transferred the sticky smear to a tissue from her pocket. It's almost like glue, she said. I guess it could be sap mixed with blue dye of some kind. Was this part of Mr. LaForge's secret formula? Nancy decided to try to find out and bounded up the staircase. On the second floor, she searched for the master bedroom and identified it by initials on embroidered pillowcases on the bed. An old-fashioned desk with many pigeonholes and racks stood against one wall. It was open. Papers lay scattered at the top. The racks were filled with bottles, all containing fluids. Each one was numbered in sequence. Nancy thought they must indicate a succession of experiments. She now noticed that in some of the low-numbered bottles, the colors had changed to a deep green. None held a true dark blue. Where had the tube the ghost used come from? Bewildered, Nancy glanced around, and moments later, her eyes detected a card on the desk which reads Formula for blue. It was too complicated for her to memorize. There must be a laboratory up here, the girl detective thought. Seeing the door to an adjoining room ajar, she pushed it open. A laboratory indeed, and a well-equipped one. It seemed its untidy appearance indicated that the lab had been used recently. The ghost must have been at work, heard the visitors enter the house, and then used the ghost's scare routine, which had failed to frighten off the callers, so the specter had to escape in a hurry. Nancy was convinced by this time that the ghost was a live person playing the part, but who and why? No doubt someone connected with the orchid secret. Let's see. Don't apologize, Paulo. To the other mods in chat. Oh no. I'm so sorry. I hope they're okay. Feel free to fully step away, Ellery. You're fully good and don't feel like you have to apologize. We appreciate you. Sending all our love and good thoughts. Yeah, stream is almost over, and even if it wasn't, that all the friends always take priority. Loved ones always take priority. Most things will take priority over the stream, so you're good. Okay. Oh boy. This is one of the streams of all time. They're safe, just scared. I'm glad they're safe. I'm sorry they're scared. This certainly is one of the streams of all time. On a hunch that the formula night might be stolen, Nancy pulled her tiny high-speed camera from her pocket and quickly snapped photographs of the possible unfinished formula. Suddenly, she heard a noise behind her. Turning, she was confronted by Hendrix. "What do you think you're doing?" he hissed at her, grabbing for the camera. Nancy managed to hold on to it, quickly squeezed past him and hurried down the stairs. Her father met her. "Where have you been so long?" he asked her. "And who was that upstairs?" She told him. The lawyer smiled. "I'm proud of you. The pictures of the formula could be very valuable for LaForge's children." "Dad," Nancy whispered, "I think Hendrix is up to something. Do you?" "Yes, but I'm not sure what." Nancy pondered the mystery that was suddenly struck with a thought. The ghost on the stairway had a very clear, pretty face. "Dad," she said, "is any specific girl or woman connected with the LaForge mystery?" The lawyer looked at his daughter intently. "Come to think of it, yes, some of the estate money was left to Kiki's wife, who worked for LaForge as a secretary. It was a larger amount than what was left to Hendrix, and he, of course, resented this. His wife didn't get a thing. I'll bet he was pretty angry," Nancy replied thoughtfully. On a sudden hunch, Nancy went back upstairs to the lab. Hendrix was gone, and while searching the room for clues, she opened a desk drawer. Inside lay a white wig. The ghost, Nancy thought, and picked it up. On the canvas lining was stamped the number 23L, 109. In tiny letters against the L was Omax. Omax. I don't know what that means. Nancy grinned. The wig had been rented on or purchased at the Lomax Beauty Salon in River Heights. That's what it means. I guess the book just told me. She replaced the wig and hurried downstairs to her father. Let's go, Dad, she urged. I have an errand in town. It was not until they were in the car that she told him about the clue of the wig. They stopped at the Lomax shop, and Nancy went in. You wish to make an appointment, the woman at the desk asked. No, thank you, Nancy replied, but I'd like to rent a wig like the one you gave to a young woman. Would you mind looking up your records? The number was 23L109. This is most unusual, the woman said. What is her name? I don't know. I saw the wig backstage at a theater and I looked inside. The woman rifled through the cards in a box and finally pulled one out. This was a special order, she said. If you want one, I'll have to make one up for you. How long would it take? Nancy asked. A couple of weeks, but we have one to rent. As Nancy thought about the mystery, she strained to catch a glimpse of the name on the card. What she saw was no surprise. In the upper right-hand corner was written Hendrix. So his wife was indeed the ghost. She and her husband must be working as partners. Oh, I love it when couples do stuff together. I'll let you know about renting a wig like this one, Nancy said quickly and left the shop. As the young detective rejoined her father, her mind was in a whirl. Then suddenly a new idea came to her. Dad, she said, would you mind taking me home to get my car? I think I'll ask Bess and George to spend some time with me at LaForge Place, okay? At the LaForge Place, okay? As co-executor of the state, I can give you permission, but keep at all your wits about you and call me the minute there's any trouble. When Nancy's close girlfriends received the invitation, George was eager to help solve the mystery of the Orchidiania. I still can't say it. But when Bess heard about the ghost, she was reluctant to go. You know I don't like even the mere mention of ghosts, she said, real or otherwise. In the end, however, she agreed to go rather than be called chicken. The girls went food shopping, then set off at 5 o'clock. When they drove into the grounds of Orchidiana, I'm not sure how to say it, I'm sorry, George could not resist teasing Nancy. What a great place for you and Ned to settle down. Blech. Yes, 8 times 2 is 16. Doubled the stitch to match my cousin. Yeah, they don't ever tell you how much math is involved when you start doing crochet, do they? Oh no! I love that TikTok that's like, clear! Where it's rows with no increase or decrease. I hate when that happens. I added a few stitches to a pattern of a sweater that I'm making, the one that I was making on live last night, because I wanted it to be extra big. I'm just kind of like a comfy, like, fall oversized sweater, and I'm just like super litigious about using my stitch marker to make sure that I've got every single stitch, and I just am always worried because I'm terrible at counting stitches. I had finally found someone to 3D print something for me. Something I've wanted to 3D print for over a year. Woo! Yay, 3D printing! Alright. Best side. I wouldn't live in a house with a ghost in it, even for free. I might. You know what the housing market is like right now, Bess? Once settled inside, the girls cooked their dinner and sat down to watch TV. Soon afterwards, dusk turned to darkness. In a few minutes, they heard a piercing screech. Bess jumped in her chair. What on earth was that? Only a cat, George replied. I'll bet it's a black one. Bess said, always pessimistic. I love little black cats. I think they get a bad reputation, and I think they're actually lucky, not unlucky. My friend also says witches always have black cats because we all wear black, and that way when they shed on our clothes, it can't be seen as much. So, I thought that was very cute. Nancy flashed her strong lantern out the window, then laughed. Only half your luck will be bad, Bess. The cat is pure white paws. The cat is pure white paws. You win again, Nancy, said Bess, and sighed. His little sock hands. Just the same, I wish that cat would stop its horrible screeching. George said to her cousin, you might try throwing water on it. I've heard that's the thing to do, Bess said no more and paid strict attention to the TV program until the three girls were startled by the sudden slamming of a front window shutter. That's funny, George remarked. There's no wind tonight. Nancy hurried to the window and gasped. What is it? Bess asked nervously. The ghost, Nancy replied. George went to look. A figure with long white hair, wearing a filmy, tiered full-length white gown, was dancing on the lawn. Every few seconds it would stop, make a bow, and then continue as if an audience were demanding an encore. Not creepy at all. No, don't have nightmares. I'd take a haunted house for sure. Was calmed enough to go to bed for the night, and I believe I'm fully returned. Welcome back, Ellery. I'm so sorry. That sounds awful. I must get closer, Nancy announced, squaring her shoulders, and ran outdoors. Bess and George watched from the window as their friend sped across the lawn after the dancer who was running away from the young detective. Stop, stop, I must talk to you, Nancy cried out. The chase led to the big greenhouse. The ghost rushed inside, slammed the door, and locked it. Nancy raced to an adjoining shed, hurried through it, and burst into the main building. The ghost was not in sight. Had she gone back to the house to change clothes? Before leaving the greenhouse, the girl detective beamed her light under every bench and arbor. No one was in hiding. Nancy decided to go back to the house and search there for the elusive ghost. Even again, she was disappointed. Oh dear, she thought, now what? A sudden idea came to her. She retraced her steps to the room where she had seen the long, white-haired wig. The door was open, but no one was inside. Nancy went at once to the bureau and opened the top drawer. The wig lay inside. She felt it warm. It had been used recently. At this moment, a small woman walked in. She wore a nightie and dressing gown. What are you doing? She asked. And who are you? Let me guess. You're Nancy Drew, the snooping girl detective. Nancy did not answer. Instead, she asked, You're Mrs. Hendricks? It's none of your business who I am. You don't belong here, so get out and stay out. Nancy asked, You don't own this house. It belongs to the LaForge estate. The woman glared at her. You think you know it all, but you'll never find out the real secret of this place, she yelled. Bess and George, wondering what had become of Nancy, heard the loud talking and came to investigate. By now, the woman had shoved Nancy into the hall and locked herself in. Nancy, what happened? Bess asked. The girl detective put a finger to her lips and motioned for the girls to follow her along the hall. On the way, she spotted a telephone on the table. Impulsively, she picked it up, thinking she'd call her father. As she held the receiver to her ear, a man's voice said, "Hi, Mrs. Hendricks." Nancy's mind raced. "Yes, anything new?" she asked. "Yes, tell your husband I'm ready to meet his offer." "That's good," Nancy said, trying to figure out a way to get the man's name. She asked, how do you spell your last name?" "With a Y. Smith, Ed Smith, in Eastville. And remember, no one can know about this." I thought he was just going to say with a Y and Nancy was going to be shit out of luck. Okay, almost done. They're safe, and that's what matters. Just minor bruising from the airbag and scared from the other guy's road rage. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm glad they're okay. That sucks, though. "I'll remember," Nancy said, "and thank you." As soon as the caller hung up, Nancy dialed her father at home and guardedly told him of the conversation. It was not until the next morning that she learned the real significance of the call. Mr. Drew drove out to the LaForge residence and told the girls that Ed Smith was president of the Eastville Greenhouse, a large wholesale florist. He was a rival of LaForge's, and LaForge would never sell the secret formula of the blue orchid. Nancy asked, "You don't think Mr. Hendricks is selling the formula and intending to keep the money, do you? He doesn't even know the entire thing." "Anyway, no one does." "It looks that way," the lawyer replied, "but your good detecting, Nancy, has foiled him if that's what he planned. I'll talk to Ed Smith myself. In the meantime, keep on with your work there. Hendricks might have figured out the remaining portion." After he had left, Nancy decided on a bold move. "Let's go talk to Kiki," she suggested to the girls. They found him in the workshop of the greenhouse, unpacking a large box of pink orchids. "Oh, how beautiful," Nancy exclaimed. "Where do they come from?" "Hawaii," he replied. "My family grows them. When LaForge Nurseries gets a big order, my folks send flowers to me." Nancy looked at the young man and asked, "Kiki, have you ever mixed a formula to change the color of the flowers?" "No, I never have, but I'd like to try, only I don't have the formula." "I have part of it," Nancy said. "Shall we mix some of the sticky sap into the dark blue fluid and immerse the orchid stems in it?" "Let's go into the cold room," he said eagerly. The cold room proved to be the no admittance room. Part of the space had been reserved for experimenting. Test tubes hung on racks along the wall, tools lay on benches, buckets and empty glass bottles stood nearby. "Where are the liquids?" Nancy asked. Kiki opened a closet door. Inside were many shelves filled with liquids or various colors. Nancy fumbled in her pocket for the paper on which the formula was written. She read it, then selected 3 bottles, red, blue, and 1 marked sap. She poured a little of the 2 colors into a test tube and added water. Almost instantly, a beautiful deep purple appeared. Nancy was disappointed. "How am I ever going to get blue?" she said to Kiki, who merely shrugged and replied, "That's a pretty color." Rather than waste it, Nancy poured the fluid into a bottle, added some sap, then put the stem of a white orchid into it. She and Kiki watched intently. Gradually, the petals of the flower began to change, first to lavender, then deeper and deeper. All this time, Bess and George had been waiting in the greenhouse and enjoying the orchid display. We're almost done. We've got 1, 2, 3 and 3/4 pages left. Suddenly, Bess grabbed George's arm. "Someone's coming," she whispered, seeing a woman walk through the entrance door. "We should warn Nancy." George raced toward the no admittance room. At the same time, the woman started to run after her. "You can't go in there," she shouted at George. George paid no attention. She threw open the door and warned Nancy and Kiki, who immediately stopped their testing. "Mrs. Hendricks," he muttered nervously. Quickly, he closed and locked the door. Mrs. Hendricks pushed George aside and tried to get in. Failing, she grew red in the face and screamed, "I'll fix you!" On a nearby wall was a small red wheel with a sign above it, "Temperature Control." She turned the wheel to the mark for freezing. That'll take care of the unwanted visitors, she said with a sly smile. And to Bess and George, don't try to turn that off. It's automatic and will change itself in 12 hours and open the door, which is now locked from the outside. She fled from the greenhouse. Bess was in a panic. Nancy, you'll freeze to death. George jumped to the wheel. I don't believe that horrible creature, she said. Bess pounded on the door. At the same time, she tried to turn the wheel back to normal, but she couldn't find the button to unlock the wheel from the position. Minutes ticked by, and finally Bess, feeling blindly around a huge nearby switch panel, found the button on the underside. The door opened. Yay, Bess! Nancy and Kiki staggered out, shivering, and were told what had happened. The two victims sighed in relief. Kiki said thanks for saving the priceless orchids in there. To say nothing of priceless us, Nancy added. Bess and George nodded. But what are we going to do about the awful woman, George? About that awful woman, George asked finally. I have a plan, Nancy replied. Right now, we girls are going to leave here, but we're coming back secretly tonight. She led the way out of the greenhouse to her car. They climbed in and Nancy drove off. What's your big plan, Nancy? Bess asked. To meet the ghost on her own ground. As they rode into town, Nancy stopped in at Lomax's beauty salon and went inside. She said she would rent the wig and paid the girl at the desk. After leaving Bess and George at their houses, she went to her own home and hurried to a bedroom closet. Nancy selected a pale pink bridesmaid dress that she had once worn to an older friend's wedding. I wonder if it was Helen's wedding. She folded it carefully and put it in a suit box together with the long platinum blonde wig from the beauty salon. Directly after supper, Nancy picked up Bess and George for the ride back to Orchidiana. Her friends begged for some details of Nancy's plan. I need a tissue. Hang on. I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you, those meddling kids and their dog. And literally every kid show. Yep. Still to this day laughing about when Greta Thunberg accidentally, when her beef with Andrew Tate helped the Romanian police capture him. I saw somebody tweet, wow, you gotta give it to Greta. It's been a while since I've seen a teenager take down a criminal and a talking dog wasn't even involved. Okay. Folded it carefully, put it in a suit box together with a long platinum blonde wig. Beauty salon directly after supper. Nancy picked up Bess and George for the ride back to Orchidiana. Her friends begged for some details of Nancy's plan. After hearing it, George asked, how can you be sure the greenhouse ghost will appear on the lawn? If she doesn't, Nancy said, you're to coax her outside, so she will. We've only got a page and a half left, so let's see how this wraps up. It was like season 8 of Game of Thrones where you're like, I wonder how they're going to wrap all this up in 2 episodes. Oh, they're not? Okay. So you coax her outside, so she will. Near dusk, Nancy put on her disguise and walked to the greenhouse. Bess and George watched from a window. Presently, the white-haired ghost came outside carrying a vial of dark fluid. She danced across the grass, sprinkling the fluid as she went. The figure flitted here and there, apparently with no destination in mind. Nancy decided it was time for her to appear. She came from behind a bush where she was hiding. Imitating the other ghosts, she danced gracefully toward the center of the lawn. Then she stopped suddenly, stretched her arms in front of her, and moaned loudly. The other ghost turned. Seeing Nancy, she gave a cry and darted into the house. Bess and George rushed into the hall and blocked the stairway. Good evening, Mrs. Hendricks, George said, and Bess added, you dance very well. A look of surprise and fear crossed the woman's face. You know me? She asked. At this moment, Nancy floated in through the front door. Your game is up, Mrs. Hendricks, she said. You and your husband almost got away with stealing the LaForge secret formula. and selling it. Your ghost act was just to scare people off while you worked figuring out the remaining portion of the formula. The formula you stole. That's not true, the woman said. Mr. LaForge gave it to us just before he died. I'm afraid you'll have to prove that in court, the girl detective said. Mrs. Hendricks paled. They were suddenly interrupted by Kiki, who rushed in. He stared in amazement at the two ghosts, but finally recognized Nancy. He grabbed her hand excitedly. I figured it out. Come on and see. Come and see. She followed him to the greenhouse, where he pointed proudly to a beautifully dark blue orchid. How wonderful, Nancy exclaimed. How did you do it? She asked. I can barely remember the combination of liquids I used, he replied excitedly. But here, I wrote them down as I went along, just in case I got the last part right. You should be very proud of yourself, Nancy smiled warmly. I'm sure the next owners of this place would be honored to keep you on. Kiki smiled. I'd be honored, too, on one condition. No more lawn parties and no more ghosts. Oh, thank God. We're done, guys. We're done. R.I.P. the iCarly reboot. Or the end scene of Sopranos, or the iCarly reboot. Preferably not with a monologue info dump about Frog Cult. Yeah. Yeah. While I still have you guys here, for those who have a few extra minutes, and feel free to jump off anytime you want, I'm going to write my review. I'm going to give it 1 star, even though some of the stories were cute, because I hated that one so much. 5 out of 6 of these stories were fine, and some of them were even good, but story... Wait, that's gonna be confusing. But one of the stories was the most racist garbage I think I've ever had to read. Yeah, let's specify which one. It is the curse of the... I'll get into it. The Curse of the Frog, I believe is what it was called. The Curse of the Frog is the 5th short story in the book. And while reading it, one becomes... Wait, how do I want to say this? Right from the beginning, it accosts the reader with racist stereotypes of the Romani. How do you spell it? It doesn't like the way that I'm spelling it. Romani. There we go. I got it. Romani people, and uses the G slur every other sentence. The story itself is a hastily written non-mystery with no focus and an info dump monologue. No, that's not how you spell that. Nope, that's not how you spell that either. Monologue. At the end to wrap up a nonsensical and outright offensive piece of work. What have I forgotten, chat? Worst thing I've ever read is I've never read that. Goodreads mods. Hey, I'm a librarian. I do librarian work for them, so they're gonna give this one to me. Let's wait, but the review is the best part of tonight, other than the kitten cam. No, that's fair. No, that's very fair. Yeah, that's true, Ellery. Let's see. The story veers off halfway into being about no lie a pirate frog cult, and one is left to wonder if the Romani culture was simply brought up to be slandered. Yes, emotional support stuff he's needed to read. Yeah. Emotional support stuffies are suggested to read, as in all honesty and joking and jokes aside, this was a very triggering portion of an otherwise fun Nancy Drew collection. Peace and love, never read it. You can read. Nope, yep. Hang on. There we go. You can read what I've written. Let's see. Oh, also the description of the Romani fortune teller gave off subtly transphobic subtext. Yes. Also, there is subtle transphobic subtext in the way a Romani fortune teller is described as having an unusually deep voice for a woman. Thank you. Thank you, Ellery. Thank you, chat. Oh, yeah, the reading of this book was filmed in front of a live studio audience. Do you know how many times as a Goodreads librarian I have to go and, like, take out the, like, just links to people's, like, private, like, Twitch streams and stuff where they put it, like, in the official description of a book where they're specifically told that that is against our policy? Oh yeah, and sincerely the Scooby-Drew crew. Um, in fact, just skip this one unless it's for educational purposes. Sincerely yours, the Scooby-Drew crew. I think we used to put the year, right? 2023. There we go. Oh, pro-confederacy is mentioned. Right. I keep for Jesus. My brain was just filtering it all out. Also, all in caps. Also, there's a mention of a family being pro-confederacy with nothing to challenge that narrative, so that's not good. Ellery's got notes. He's like, man, I am here. I am here for the slander. Pay your actors now, please. Oh yeah, the writer's strike is over. Right now, we're just waiting for SAG to make a deal before we can be off strike. You weren't lazy, Chris. Yep, they're continuing their talks into next week. So, God, look, we had to read through this whole thing. The least we can do is roast it. Also, this is a long bit for just talking about the problematic parts of this one short story. That's just unacceptable. Ugh. Well, that was our 109th book we read, guys. Yay. Sorry, you guys can't hear. Hang on. Oh boy. Okay, let's just do this. There we go. No Kermit arms for that one. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. I'm gonna keep looking. If if any of you know any, I'm going to look for one that I can do through Tiltify, because I do all of my fundraiser projects through Tiltify, but I would like to see if I can find any sort of nonprofit that benefits the Romani community. And if so, I'm going to post that as just a bit of an ongoing fundraiser. Because if so, I'm going to post about our experience for anybody who wasn't here for this. And we're going to, see if we can turn something good into this. Because I almost wanted to skip past the whole thing, but I did want us to have a conversation, because I'm really tired of how complacent and how complacent isn't the right word, how pervasive Romani stereotyping negatively. Specifically, there's all kinds of racist stuff, but like especially in the kind of things that we cover, we seem to run into a lot of Romani racism, and it drives me insane. So thank you guys for sticking with me. Look, I'm never forgetting the psychic damage this book has done to chat and Modfather. And as Modfather, I must get my revenge upon this work. Yes. Relatable Frankenstein. Woo! Yes, 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 yes. We should have a goal. We should have some kind of goal to work towards to get people to support the cause. I'll think about that, but I'm gonna get off stream because I have a couple of things to do before. I've got to get a couple of things together for the podcast tomorrow. I want to do some research into that. Yeah, go do something comforting, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I know we're a mellow place, but thank you guys for allowing us to talk about stuff that's messed up and kind of have a learning moment, or for lack of a better word, where we can just kind of roast something for being awful. Because I don't think it gets talked about enough. So, thank you, Chris. So yeah, good night, everybody. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. Go do something comforting. Go watch a show that makes you happy. And I'll see you later. Bye.